Well, that's a snazzy soundtrack there.
It was. Was that different than the one you did last time I was here?
This actually from RWBY.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's volume 9 right there.
Yeah,
okay.
It's volume 9. Yep. Yeah, it's interesting, like how so many animes have different soundtracks throughout, like the whole series. You know.
Also, I'm gonna say right now that if you start the fight in the comments of if RWBY's an anime or not, just stop.
I didn't realize this was a thing.
I don't know if it still is, but it was.
Really?
And as somebody who really does enjoy anime, I didn't initially put it under that category because the animation style is a little different.
It is.
But it's got the spirit, in my opinion.
So is RWBY? Is it still a Japanese made?
No, it's Rooster Teeth. It's American.
Oh, it's Rooster Teeth, really? Mm-hmm. Okay, so this would be something more akin to like Avatar. In the sense of it is American made, but...
Was Avatar American made? I think it was. You're right.
Yeah.
It just... kind of. Yeah, kind of. It's in a weird gray zone. Granted, now with the remake they're doing that is actually in anime-style anime, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. See, that just... wow, you really just threw me for a loop there. I would have sworn that RWBY was...
I think it is boxed in as anime.
Gotcha. I just assumed that it was a Japanese-based animated cartoon, but no.
Nope.
Well, the more you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. That took me by surprise there. Last time that you were on here, we discussed The Flash.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
First time I was on here too.
Yeah. The first time you were on. Yeah. The first time you were on here. You were on here to discuss The Flash, a movie featuring a DC character that has received mixed reviews. And today I have you here again to discuss a movie that does feature the Flash.
It does.
That has received mixed reviews.
Yeah.
So I do want to properly welcome you back again here to the Superhero Homies podcast. Everyone give a warm homie welcome, a homie hello, if you will, a homie hug even, to Dylan. Dylan, welcome back to the podcast. That's for you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's still weird. You have a whole, do you feed the people that are just there for the laugh, for the laugh tracks and the cheers?
This is filmed in front of a live studio audience, so they choose to come and go as they please.
Are you sure? That dude's blinking at me real hard.
He does that. That's Jeff. Just ignore him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
He's gonna keep doing it the more attention you pay him.
So, okay.
For this episode in particular, Dylan, I really wanted you on because I knew that you were a big fan of RWBY and you're a big fan of anime in general. A few months ago, we went to MomoCon, which is a pretty big anime convention in Atlanta, and that was my first experience at that particular con. And I've always liked anime a whole lot, and it just came a certain point where I guess I was at an impasse.
Yeah.
And the impasse started with the podcast, I guess. But I always liked anime. There have always been so many different variations of anime. And I knew that if I wanted to go all in on like a superhero-based podcast, a lot of my other hobbies were going to have to take kind of a back seat.
Yeah, I think you've told me about this a little bit before. Because I asked you. I think it was actually after we stopped recording the last one I was here for. I was like, just out of curiosity, do you like anime? And you're like, yeah. Mm-hmm. But I definitely get it. Because oddly enough, similar situation. I like comic books.
Yeah.
I actually like comic books. But I can't even keep up with all the anime I want to watch, let alone even start trying to get really into comic stuff.
I wonder what is more complex to get into and or follow, like a string of anime or a string of comic books.
I feel like that depends on both the anime and the comic book.
That's fair. That's fair.
I'm going to say they're equal.
You know what? I
might piss people off by that, but whatever.
I think that's a good answer. So I wanted to talk about this just briefly before we get, things rolling here with Justice League. What is the technical name of this movie?
I literally just looked it up too. It was
Justice League X RWBY.
Is Justice League first or is RWBY first? Because I actually, oddly enough, would have said RWBY X Justice League, but this might be a bias situation.
No, you are correct. It is RWBY X Justice League.
I'd put it that way probably because they're in the RWBY universe.
They are, yeah, and that is fair. Yeah, so interesting. So originally this, I probably should look at this before we started here. I didn't know that this was originally a comic series first. I didn't know that.
You know, I think I actually knew that.
Wow.
But like vaguely, and it was forgotten because RWBY actually started off as a show, and then they started making the like graphic novel styles. For it. So I thought whenever I first heard this, I thought when somebody talked about it, I was like, oh, cool. It was like that one image I saw online of like the comic of it, whatever. And they're like, oh, it's a movie, and I was like, huh?
Right. Yeah. I just saw it here. The comic book came out not that long ago. In spring of 2021. That's when it originally came out. So not that long ago, and then they really hit the gas pedal on turning that into a animated movie. And so there's a lot to say about that. But before we get too far,
yes,
into RWBY X Justice League, I wanted to run some things by you and see. First of all, if you knew these things.
That actually wasn't the whole title. You said you were going to say the title of it.
RWBY X Justice League Huntsmen.
No, I think it's RWBY X Justice League, and you can check and correct me if you want. RWBY X Justice League Superheroes and Huntresses?
It is a very long and complex name.
You know what the funny
unnecessarily
thing is?
So.
You know what the funny thing is?
What's
That's
that?
actually fairly short for anime.
Heroes and Huntsmen. Superheroes and Huntsmen. You're right, yeah. Justice League X RWBY, Superheroes and Huntsmen.
Part 1.
Part 1. God damn it. I almost feel like now I need to get the comic book so we can read it and compare it.
I won't stop you. I'll read them.
But something interesting here that I've spoken about a time or two on the podcast has been, for the past few years now, several years, in the West, meaning that in America, Japanese manga has outsold American comic books in America by a significant margin.
I think I remember you telling me that once, and I was honestly shocked.
It's not even close anymore.
Really?
Yeah, not even close. Yeah.
That's dang. Because don't get me wrong, I enjoy me manga. I enjoy me anime. Don't think about the grammar of that sentence. But I don't have the privilege of being able to, and I have not let myself collect them. Because it's steep immediately.
Listen.
I motioned to the lovely room we're in with just so much nerd.
I can only imagine when I was a kid or a teenager, I tried to do both with what very limited money I had.
Oh, no, dude.
Yeah, it was, Yeah, so I had a little bit of Batman, and then I had some Yu Yu Hakusho.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. And then I had
never finished that one.
Because in the States, in terms of like the anime, if you watched it, in the States back in the day, then you probably saw it on Toonami.
Yeah.
And they never finished it. So,
that's good. That makes me feel a little better.
Yeah.
Because there's a few different anime from my childhood that I just didn't at the time. Streaming wasn't a thing.
No.
Like at all.
Right.
Like the best you had eventually when I started to grow up was like on-demand stuff.
Oh yeah, before Crunchyroll, yeah.
Yeah, not Crunchyroll came back. Actually, I don't know when Crunchyroll started coming out, but no, there's a few different ones that like are some of my favorites, even, or like maybe not favorites, but like near and dear to me that I look back and I'm like, never finished that.
What are your favorites?
So I'm not good at picking favorites. I'm gonna say that right now, but. My top one has got to be at this point One Piece because I am current on One Piece.
So you seen from the beginning?
Episodes.
That is impressive.
Yeah, most of it I've seen a good 3 times because I got up to a certain point. For those who might know, the first time was Skypiea area, and then I restarted because I got lost, and then I got past that, and I read past that at one point, and then I got the second time around. I want to say it was somewhere around the Water 7 spot. Ace is just sitting back. He's got nothing on this one. Sorry, bud. And then I restarted again, and went all the way to the end of it. I'm a few episodes behind now, but I also know what's going on in the manga and the current. So,
I mean that's beyond impressive because although I don't know a whole lot about One Piece, I know that it is one of the longest anime ever.
I don't know if it's the longest, but it is definitely up there.
Yeah. I mean, because I have a brother-in-law who is very much into One Piece, and he.
Yeah, I'm right here.
well, wait a minute. There's some questions that need to be answered now.
Don't think about it. It's fine. But I'm sorry, you were saying?
He tries to talk to me about it sometimes, and I'm like, this is very intriguing, but you're trying to fill me in on hundreds of episodes of material.
If you thought the like, 15, 20 minutes of info dump I gave you at the start of this movie was a lot, that is nothing. That is just nothing comparatively. There's so much to One Piece, dude.
Yeah, it's over 1,000 episodes, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. We got a few more years left. It's getting near the end.
Oh, my gosh. Jesus. So that's, that's
but
amazing.
we're not here for that.
Yeah. Well, what else was
so if you do count RWBY as anime, it would probably be my top 5.
Gotcha.
Along with Full Metal Alchemist, because I actually have my one tattoo of a Full Metal Alchemist symbol. The Ouroboros, by the way.
That's right. I saw that at MomoCon. I thought it was Wilson from Castaway. I didn't have my glasses on.
In your defense, you didn't have your eyes on. And then Cowboy Bebop.
That's one of my favorites.
Oh, it's gold.
Yeah.
And then it's real hard to pick the next one. I'm just going to say top 4.
That's fair. I don't blame you.
I like Trigun.
I think I saw that one almost to the end, and then something happened.
It gets rough. But the problem is, after I said that, I think I lied because there's a lot of newer ones that I absolutely love. I'll get honorable mention.
Yeah.
And this one's also, I'm saying it because you thought the RWBY movie name was long. It was it's that time I got reincarnated as a slime.
I'm sorry. Are you telling me something that happened to you, or it's just the name of an anime?
That's the name of an anime.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's not even the longest one I know, actually. There's another one it is a good one, but not nearly as good. Is the world's best assassin gets reincarnated as an aristocrat.
Okay, so I feel like some of these translations from Japanese to English, I feel like there is a lot lost in translation sometimes.
No, I think they're doing it on purpose.
I think I was afraid of that. I was afraid that was the right answer.
They've made too many of them, and they're like, all right, fuck it.
Yeah, let's just go balls to the wall. Yeah. But before we get started, I just wanted to talk briefly also about the phenomenon that we spoke about a few minutes ago about manga outselling comic books by a large margin. I think, first of all, I think that's tremendous for manga, and I love the fact that so many people are reading manga, that it's becoming not just more normalized, but like the thing to do now.
Like kind of mainstream.
Yeah, it's very much mainstream now. Anime is very much mainstream now.
And I'm not gonna try and gatekeep that. I love that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's for the best.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Now maybe you should keep it from like Netflix, keep them. Maybe keep it from Hollywood. It's the right answer. I don't know.
Although I am still holding out hope. Probably shouldn't, but I'm holding out hope for the live action One Piece. It doesn't look awful.
Oh, that's right. They are doing One Piece.
One or two things look a little interesting. I'm gonna reserve my thoughts on it until I see it, and I might cry. I don't know.
Tears of joy and
sure, we'll go with that. Maybe.
But what was it? Was Demon Slayer in particular? Mm-hmm. Demon Slayer.
That one exploded.
Demon Slayer by itself
really
outsold American comic books.
What?
All of the American comic book industry, Demon Slayer outsold it.
Just the manga?
Just the manga in the States.
What the fuck? That's wild. So I will say there also is. I know they're overseas in somewhere.
Yeah.
They do buy a lot of comic books. Some weird place. I forget who it was. So I would be interested in one day looking at the worldwide sale of manga versus worldwide sale of comics, and just to see which one wins.
Yeah, just see which one. And you know, the interesting thing is, at the end of the day, they're all technically the comics, just different formats.
I agree, but I heard the future people just being like, Homie Ace.
Oh yeah, you know they look at me as the old archaic man trying to, trying to be like, no guys, what was the competition for Blu-ray? HD movies are the future. That's how they are looking at me right now.
It's beta tapes. Yeah. It's gonna be beta tapes.
It's gonna blow up. I'm telling you.
Oh no! A lot of people probably don't even know what beta tapes
are. But I always found it so fascinating, right? That manga just exploded, whereas American comic books took a significant dive, and the two things kind of happened at the same time, right? So, like, what I mean by that is the reason for manga having such significant sales is not a direct correlation with American comic books tanking.
Really? Okay.
American comic books tank themselves.
Oh.
And it just so happens that manga kept getting more and more immersive, more and more different types, and it blew the fuck up. Whereas at the same time, American comic books became, you can put it up to a lot of things. Overall, though, we'll just suffice to say that the quality had dropped in the writing for American comic books.
Quantity over quality.
Yep.
That's
very
unfortunate.
much that.
That is very unfortunate.
And that combined with price hikes, like you take like a basic floppy comic book, you go back, 10, 20 years or so, they were on average $2, $2 to $3. Now, you find certain characters, and they just raise the price to, $5, sometimes maybe a little bit higher.
Dang, for a single. Just a floppy?
Oh yeah, yeah. And obviously that's not across the board, and that's not the only reason why they stopped selling. But ultimately, though, the excuses that the publishers try to use to justify the decline in sales just don't hold up when you look at the increase in sales in manga.
That's fair.
Yeah. So, for example, like if you're an American comic book distributor, you can't blame the decline in American comic book sales on video games or social media, or kids having other things to do, because a lot of these kids are reading manga.
Yeah, and it like you said, it is at a baseline the same thing.
Yeah,
it's a book that has both words and pictures on it,
right? And
it tells a story.
Yes.
One's just one direction, one's just the other. Now, one thing that I do find interesting about that is that I also feel like some things are crossing over a little. There's like a middle ground forming.
Yeah.
Much like you said, RWBY, a lot of people consider it an anime. It could be argued either way, whatever. Yep. But they have a graphic novel. Is a graphic novel a comic book, or is a graphic novel a manga?
So, I will argue on a technical stand base that would have to be a comic book.
See, I would probably also like that. Also, I would agree. Yeah. That also probably comes down to like, oh well. Is it just because it's backwards, quote unquote backwards for us? Is that what makes it a manga?
Yeah, that's a good question though. Yeah, I would say because of the formatting of the book. I would say the dimensions of the book.
Yeah,
the dimensions are technically a little bit different from manga versus American comic books. And the publisher, is it's not coming from a Japanese publisher.
But then here's the other question connected to that.
Yeah,
would that mean RWBY is not an anime?
And see that
it is on our end. It's a whole lot of worms that I'm not qualified for.
In a parallel universe, because we believe in that here in the Superhero Homies.
Yeah.
In a parallel universe, this podcast is the awesome anime adventures.
That'd be wild.
Yeah.
That'd be wild.
But this is not that universe.
This is not that one.
So I cannot,
This is not the universe where Dylan was a comic book nerd.
Exactly. That would be a very interesting universe to go visit.
That would be a weird one.
Yeah.
My room would look way different.
So would this one.
Everything would be a lot more scantily clad.
That's true, yeah. I mean, there's Wonder Woman over here,
She's pretty much there, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and get into this thing proper. So, homies, one and all, welcome back to another very special episode of the Superhero Homies podcast. My name is Quentin, and tonight, as I said earlier, I'm here once again with my good friend, the homie Dylan. Dylan, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Yes. I invited you to review this movie almost as soon as I caught wind of its existence.
Yeah, you messaged me about it, and I immediately, when I saw the thing, I'm not going to lie, I sighed a little.
I believe it.
Because I had not seen this one yet. And almost, I don't want to say out of principle, but I guess out of fear.
Yeah.
Because I'd seen it, and I was like, eh. And then I heard really mixed reviews, and I was like, So I just put it off. And I just kept putting it off. And then you messaged me with that, and I was like, oh, no, I'm going to have to watch it now.
Yeah. So I wanted a RWBY expert on for this one because way before watching this movie, I knew that I would not be qualified to discuss half the things that go on. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but this movie to me feels more like a RWBY product that features Justice League characters.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah. So I would be shit out of luck if I tried to do this by myself.
Not going to lie, I kind of do wish I could just glimpse into that other universe where I saw, like, it was close enough to this one where you're still comic booking, but I just got sick or something. And you're like, oh, I gave him a deadline. I got to do it. Because the movie, I guess we can, like, to dip into what the actual movie is now a little bit. The movie does a fair job of explaining, quote unquote, enough, because it did go over. I guess we should also put out there right now, this is going to be the non-spoiler section.
Yeah. So just the disclaimer here, really quick. This is the spoiler-free section of the review. So if you guys have not as of yet seen RWBY X Justice League Superheroes and Huntsmen Part 1.
And if you have seen up to loosely Volume 4, $5 of RWBY, guys, the timeline's kind of hard to pin down.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that too, actually, a little bit. But if you guys have not seen this movie, or, like Dylan said, up until a certain point in the TV show, then no worries. The first portion of this will be mostly spoiler-free. There will be some minor things that won't ruin your experience any.
Yeah, for instance, I am going to probably bring up the fact of specific characters who have died in RWBY before the section of this. So if I guess I'll say, if you haven't watched any RWBY and care, go watch like the first 4 seasons real quick and then come back. Right now, go.
There will be a pause in the episode from talking about RWBY, and that would be your guys' notice to go ahead and hit the pause button, because then that's when we're going to mosey on over to the spoiler-filled section. So there will be a notice for you guys who don't want to be spoiled when we're going to the spoiler-filled section. So just keep that in mind. How many seasons of RWBY are there right now?
Currently 9.
Okay.
10 is not quite confirmed, but kind of confirmed. It's along with the writer strike and all that. There's a lot going on.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
But that and the fact that the Rooster Teeth is still kind of going through its things. So currently there are 9 complete volumes, which are seasons, and 10 is green-lighted, question mark?
Yeah. Yeah, that question mark that's along with everything else right now in Hollywood. Exactly. Yeah, okay. So, again, this is the spoiler-free section here, but it is even hard to discuss the premise of this.
Yeah, that's why I said I am going to be talking up to a certain point of RWBY.
Yeah.
Because if I was like, all right, cool, I won't spoil anything past like half of Volume 1. It's like, all right, they have aura, they have semblances. Yeah. All right, that's all I can say.
Yeah. So, Dylan, let me go and ask you this then. Okay, so with this movie here, before we get into like the specifics,
the nitty gritty,
let's kind of talk about some things in a vague sense.
Okay.
So let me go and ask you this right off the bat. Did you enjoy this movie?
Okay. I going into this because of the mixed reviews, I was very cautious. Like I said, I avoided watching it because I'd heard it was quite bad. And I do like the Justice League. And I do like RWBY a lot. More than I like the Justice League, but the Justice League is still lovely. I was pleasantly surprised by this movie. I'm not going to say it's like, you've got to go see it right now. Yeah. But I liked it a good bit. I would say definitely have a resident RWBY person on hand and definitely have a resident comic book person on hand for you to understand this movie fully. Because there were two characters in it that I did not know at all from Justice League.
And that does lead perfectly into like the second question I had for you, which we could never really answer off mic, which is, even though this movie, I think we can all agree, is better than what we expected, and that probably goes for a lot of people.
I hope so.
Yeah.
They did a good job,
The question is still, though, who is this movie for and what prompted them to do this amalgamation?
I'm going to be honest. I don't have an answer for that. I don't know who looked at these two universes and was like, you know what? Blend them. Get them together. Put them together. Because like it's so off the wall.
They are so different
entirely.
Right? Yeah,
like down to their core. I would even say like RWBY is for the most part high fantasy. And Justice League, while I mean you could kind of argue it's high fantasy, but it's taking place in like Earth.
Right.
In fact, many Earths.
It's
there's magic powers, there's superpowers, but past that, it's still Earth.
Right.
It's still got a core of yes, there are physics, yes, there are this and that. RWBY is entirely different. Its lore is there were two, and this is not spoilers because this is from the first season.
Yeah.
Like I think even since they redid it, it might be like first episode. I don't remember how they changed it up a little bit, but. The humans were created, like everything in the humans were created by the two gods, I should say, together, and they were made from dust, which is the power source of everything. It's magic in physical form, essentially, towards different elements, and that's if you listeners listening didn't really sound a whole lot like DC Comics did it, like from a baseline from the start. Like I don't have an answer for you, bud.
I wonder, like, because again, I think this is a loose spoiler, but not really. If you've even seen any pictures or looked at the synopsis, but they de-aged the Justice League members to make them around the same age of the people in RWBY.
Yeah, which by the way is about 16 or so.
Yeah, and that even had me scratching my head because I'm like,
you could have gotten to 18, I think.
Because, like, you could have gotten the Teen Titans, right, and not have to worry about...
You know what? That's a fair point. I didn't even think about that. Like, unless you... I kind of hope they didn't do this, but unless you specifically used, like, Superman and Batman as a grab.
I think so.
So. That's cheap.
I know, it is. And that, again, leads to the third question still being... Or not the third question, but the second question still being, what in the world prompted this amalgamation? I wonder, Rooster Teeth, are they owned somehow by WB, which owns DC?
I think actually don't quote me on this, but I think RWBY might have been bought by somebody. And I am kind of curious if it is WB. Let me consort this lovely assistant off to the side that you have. It's definitely not me just looking at my phone.
Of course not. I have this wonderful assistant named Google.
Google?
Yes, and they are very excellent at their job of being a tool of resource. That's what they do. Yeah. But just to kind of filibuster here while you look that up, I was very curious to know like as exactly what led to this amalgamation of a movie being made, because again, they're just so different. Off mic, we compared it to peanut butter and steak being paired together.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
we did. Also, your assistant has informed me that it actually is a subsidiary of Warner Bros.
Oh, okay. Well, that answers, I guess, part of the question.
Yeah, like they had the ability to greenlight it, DC.
Mm-hmm. But hell, they also own. Fuck. Never mind. I was literally about to say, well, they also own Godzilla and King Kong. They're not gonna do those together, but they are actually.
Yeah, they did,
yeah. So fuck me.
Yep.
Which I don't know if that makes more sense or less.
Yes. So I guess we got the partial answer of like, I guess how it happened of sorts. And I'm gonna be honest, I did not look into like the anything behind this movie, so I don't really know anything deeper than that.
We'll have more about part 2.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Which is possibly going to happen on Halloween.
So far as what they say, I assume that the movie is already completed in all of the stages.
I think.
Yeah. If it's not for whatever reason, then maybe due to the strike, it could potentially be pushed. But
next year maybe or something. Yeah, I don't know.
I assume that they're done.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, this one was an hour and 20, and as I said, before we started this, it's I'm not belittling the work that animators do, because do they work? But like, you could pop another one of these out in that amount of time. I feel like.
Oh yeah, yeah. So with also with this movie, we just talked about how they could have used the Teen Titans because the Teen Titans are roughly already the same age.
Yeah.
So it's very bizarre, which led us to the natural conclusion that they just want the draw of
the big names, the heavy hitters.
Mm-hmm.
Which is also weird because the Teen Titans are also known by a lot of people.
Oh yeah,
I love the Teen Titans show.
Yeah, and I also think that in terms of like the general age demographic, maybe that would have been overall a more.
That's fair, actually. Yeah. Because I watched Teen Titans, and now I've watched RWBY.
Yeah.
I would have been like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Right.
Not. I probably still would have been like, why are they doing this?
Same. But maybe it would have felt a little less jarring because now they have to do the whole thing of explaining why they're younger.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas,
I don't think they actually explained.
They tried to. They did at the end.
Yeah, but like.
I'm not saying it made any sense.
Okay. Yeah. They were like, oh yeah, this happened. Look over here.
Yeah. They acknowledged it and then they said words to explain why.
Yeah.
Like you though, I didn't think this movie was awful, and also like you, I strangely enough enjoyed this movie way more than I thought I would. I'm
not giving it a 10 out of 10.
Oh no.
But I definitely enjoyed it more than I thought.
Yeah, I thought that the action was very crisp, especially in the third act. Like we get some very cool action shots.
It was very RWBY action.
Yeah, for sure. And, again, with this being set in the RWBY universe, I feel like they have to kind of accommodate that, So it has to have that RWBY action. And also with it being set in the RWBY universe, another pro for this movie, it is more of a RWBY story.
True.
Meaning that I think it's easier to watch and understand this movie if you are a RWBY fan and maybe not a DC fan than it is to watch if you are a DC fan and not a RWBY fan.
I would probably agree with that because we stopped the movie a good, 8 times?
Oh, yeah.
To just be like, all right. A good chunk of those were me, and I kind of do feel a little bad about it.
But no, I needed that.
I would be like, all right, hold up. Oz, sorry, not Oz. Ace, could you just pause it for me? I'm going to have to explain a little more than I thought it was going to. Because my initial info dump did not cover as much as I thought it would. I also am glad I spaced it out a little bit more. I feel like it was easier to eat that way.
Yeah. Because if you give me like the entire expository dump all at one time, I would have forgotten a lot of that,
Yeah, I still probably could have given you twice that amount of time in just info if I really wanted to just be like, all right, Ace, I'm going to tell you everything RWBY.
I believe it. I thought that what'd you think about the tone of this movie?
So, the tone of this movie was a little more serious than I thought it was going to be. I'm going to be honest, because with RWBY, you can kind of pinpoint where it is in the series based off of their outfits, and they had first arc. I'll put it in arcs, not so much volumes, because the outfits do span different volumes. They had first arc outfits, but the vibe was more like second, almost third arc vibes, which is a lot more down to earth, a lot more about things like self-doubt, anxiety, which those are things that really catch me as a viewer.
Yeah.
If you notice that whenever they brought up those scenes, I got a lot more quiet, and I just sat still. No, like it was definitely a introspective vibe to it for a lot of that stuff. But the art style and like the way you first initially see it in the trailer and at the start of the thing does not allude to that. It does not foreshadow that it's going to be really serious.
No. As a matter of fact, I didn't even watch a trailer before watching this. So
dang.
I went in blind,
Yeah,
you know.
It might have been for the best.
I think so. What about the pacing of this movie? Like we said, it's a brisk hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, I feel like the pacing was a bit fast, but not unforgivably so.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree with that one or not, but and I think this comes back to you saying that it's easier to watch if you're a RWBY fan more than a DC fan, because while I know your basic stuff about DC, I might know a little more than your average Joe, but we're not going to say I'm much further than that. And the DC stuff, I was able to pick up easily enough. You know, I knew who the characters were for the most part. There were two characters, like we said, that I did not know.
Yeah.
And you did have to pause and explain some of that stuff for me. But with the pacing of it, if you know RWBY, you're, in my opinion, pretty much solid.
Yeah. It's their world, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so they're setting their
rules.
Yeah, their rules, yeah. So I definitely think from that regard, yeah, it makes more sense if you're a RWBY fan. And I do wonder who that reviewed this movie online thoroughly disliked it. Was it I feel like it was probably the DC fans.
I'm going to say it. Until just now, I actually would agree with you, but I just thought about it. And much like any group, you're going to find your gatekeepers.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be either most DC stuff, because again, they did not make it easy on you.
Yeah.
But also the super hardcore gatekeeping RWBY fans.
Okay.
Which I don't know how many of those there are. I tend not to go into fandoms too hard because of a few of the fandoms that I've had in the past being just super toxic.
Trash. Yeah.
To name one, I don't know if you'll know about this, but I read through Homestuck, and I actually don't worry about it. The people who know just groaned. It had a very toxic fan base. Very toxic. Like, at cons, people, I'm not going to explain it, but people threw buckets at people.
Wow.
Like small pails.
Oh, that's way more toxic.
It's a thing that happened in one panel in there, and it went way out of hand, and that was the one, because like about that time I was like, oh cool, I can actually get into, I'm going to more conventions, I'm going to get into fandoms a little more. So all that was like, I'm good. I'm going to back up. But I forgot where I was originally going with that one.
We were talking about the pacing of this, and then that led us down to talking about who is this movie easier for to digest and who probably disliked it more. Yeah.
So I would say that because it doesn't allow for DC fans to more easily digest it, most of the DC fans were probably like, we didn't want this, nobody wanted this, this is dumb, I hate it. And then the RWBY fans were like,
this isn't true to
this isn't true to the thing, this is stupid, why are you getting DC in here, this is a money grab, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
That would be my guess.
Mine too. And then that also leads me to wonder, because I didn't look into this beforehand, about the graphic novel that they did first.
Yeah, I forgot about it.
Yeah. I wonder, did that graphic novel, it had to have done tremendously well, right, for them to justify
honestly
making the movie.
And the weird thing is, I would probably just like at a baseline accept a graphic novel of this easier than I would a movie.
I think so too.
Because I'd be like, oh, this is a cool little thing. Because like, if I see a graphic novel, I might not necessarily be like, oh, a big company was behind this. And maybe like, oh, this person made this, and this is cool. I like this. But then you make it a movie. And for some reason, that shift over to movie or film or like show just makes it hit different, I guess.
Yeah, it does. It's to a different degree. It's kind of like if Vin Diesel had been granted his wish and the Fast and Furious character showed up in the MCU.
Wait, did he want that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to tell if he was, being completely serious or joking. I can't tell with Vin.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's weird. Wow, I did not know that one.
Oh. But yeah, so in terms of who didn't like this movie, first of all, I do understand from separate camps why each side wouldn't like this.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But that kind of leads back to the overarching problem with this movie as a whole, which is this whole Inception. Mm-hmm. Like the biggest problem with this movie isn't, I don't think, the actual quality of the movie that we got.
No, because the quality, honestly, I would say quality of it, I would give about an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
For just quality.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that they told a very concise story. They, they had several different kind of branching storylines that converged with several different characters, and I thought, for the most part, they played true to everybody's personalities or their...
Yeah, there was a time or two where we were like, that person wouldn't really be that way.
Yeah.
But then, like, they shifted a little bit or they explained a little bit of something. You were like, okay, I can kind of see that. I can see that.
So, I thought from that regard, from a character integrity standpoint, I thought they did pretty good as to holding true. But ultimately, though, they were really fishing for a super niche audience that I'm not sure exists.
I don't think it does either, man. I feel like I might be the closest thing to like.
I think you are
perfect, quote unquote, perfect viewer, and even I'm like, I mean, this was enjoyable.
Yeah.
But why? Just why?
Right. Yeah. So that aside, and I know it sounds like we may be talking about that quite a bit, but we can't overstate
how odd
it
is.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
How bizarre. So like we said earlier, I needed you a lot. I leaned on you quite a bit during this movie to tell me more about RWBY and the setting. I'm going to ask you this, only slightly related to this movie. Why, and I think I asked you this before, why is it RWBY?
So
deep breath in.
A little bit. So fun little thing about that, and this is going to be a fairly short tangent. I'll keep it kind of short. But when I first heard about RWBY, I did not know it was called RWBY. We did not, as a fan base, did not know it was called RWBY. The only experience I found of it was a friend of mine showing it to me, and oddly enough, I picked it up harder than they did. But it was a YouTube video of a trailer, and it showed RWBY, the
lead character. The lead
character. Yeah, I thought you said lead character, and I was like, no, it wasn't. Because anyway, it showed her and her start. Which after this, I might actually show you the trailers because they're not long.
Yeah.
And they're enjoyable. But it showed her trailer, and then at the end of her little trailer, which very dated, by the way. This was the first instance of them messing with it. And whenever they first made RWBY, it was a small team, super small team. I don't know the number, but I would not be surprised if it was like 2 or 4 people.
Wow. That's small.
Yeah. Somebody who's even more of a fan than me would be like, no, Dylan, no, it's this. You're dumb. You're a big fan. And I'm going to be like, all right, fine. But at the end of the trailer, it showed the silhouette of like the poster, essentially, of the first thing, which was the 4 silhouettes of them, and it was RWBY.
Yeah.
And over each one was a silhouette, and RWBY was over the first one. Here's the kicker, though. There were no voice lines in that trailer, other than the song in the background, which, by the way, I highly recommend the soundtrack for all of RWBY to everybody. It is...
Chef's kiss.
Yes, and I'm not a huge music person, but I love those soundtracks. Not the ones without the words, go for the ones with the words.
Yeah.
And each, like, a while apart from each other, you get the next one, which was Weiss, but it was W. Still no words.
Right.
And then Weiss showed up. And then Blake's popped up, and you finally got voices.
Okay. So last one Yang?
Yes, the last one is Yang. And with Blake, you finally got people talking to each other. And it was actually Blake and a character named Adam. And I actually thoroughly suggest people who are going to get into RWBY or try RWBY, go ahead and give these 4 a watch, specifically because they show, before the show, these characters' kind of origin. And you do learn that Blake's name is Blake in that one, but we still didn't know how to say the thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't until... how many episodes in? A few, like 3 episodes in, maybe, that we found out that the show is called RWBY because that's actually their team name.
Okay.
And they say it visibly.
Yeah.
Like verbally. They actually bring it up. So, like, I was watching the show still calling it RWBY.
Yeah.
And that is why I guess it's made like that, because it's all the team names are the first initial of each member mixed into a word, sort of.
Right. Yeah. So when I first saw it, I didn't know if it was like an acronym or.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, it sort of is.
Yeah. I guess kind of. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I just needed clarification on that because I wasn't too sure.
I didn't deem that necessary enough to dump on top of everything else before the movie.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, so we were talking about like the pacing of this movie. I actually thought it was very well paced, and a reason for that for me kind of ties into the plot. What do you think about the plot of this movie?
Aside from the fact that we keep bringing up of being like, I don't get it,
bizarreness of it.
I don't hate the plot. I definitely think it was weaker in my opinion than just the quality of it. The plot was weaker than the quality because you do understand some things by the end of it. They do pseudo tie it up. Granted, they have to leave room for a part 2, so I understand why not all questions were answered.
Yeah.
But by the end of this, I'm still just wondering why. So I guess that's the point, though.
Is that the point?
I don't know. So, like, I would say plot-wise, it would be about a 5 or 6 for me.
Yeah. You know what it was for me, right? Like, you're right. It's not that the plot in this movie is particularly strong. I think it's just the character dynamics. They made them blend together better than I thought they could.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I was very shocked.
Yeah.
There were 1 or 2 points where I was like, I verbally said to you, I was like, these two better not get closer than this.
Yeah.
This is, stop it.
Yeah. It would have been, I get that.
It just would have been a little weird, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's true. It also gets weird again, like when you... I don't want to get into too many spoilers here, but it gets weirder if we could clarify, are the Justice League members, are they actually aware that they are consciously, mentally adults and they're in their younger bodies?
That's a fair point. Because there are a few points where some of the characters, they make it seem like some of the characters are getting close to other characters.
Yeah.
Without spoilers, I guess. I can't even allude to which certain characters, but I couldn't tell if I was reading too much into it or if I was just like, oh, these two characters are close because they personality wise are a little closer.
Yeah.
Or if it was like, oh, it could be something else.
Right.
And then they pull back.
Yeah, I couldn't. I had the same feelings and probably about the same characters.
I would probably imagine so.
Yeah.
They weren't sly about it.
Yeah.
I do like that you had the same vibe off of it than me though. I don't.
Oh yeah.
I don't like the idea of me being like gatekeepy.
Yeah, and I don't think that's even you being gatekeepy as much as it is just wanting a product to be true to its nature. Even though there is a fine line, you know, and the toxic fans always kind of tend to show up and show their, ugly heads about that.
I will admit that there is a specific pairing that I did tell you wasn't canon, but I personally enjoy from RWBY, which I'll say the pairing, and it's RWBY and Weiss.
Yeah.
I think those two are very adorable together, and one of those two of them were showing more interest than I think should have happened early, as quick as it did, to another character, and I was like, you guys better calm that down. Yeah. I'm not going to like this if you don't do it.
Well, I remember you saying that to me during the movie. That did remind me of something, though, slightly off topic here. One of the, I don't want to call it a death knell, but one of the downfalls recently of American comic books is letting glorified fan fiction into the comic books.
Yeah,
that's
I'll agree with that.
Yeah, I mean it's awful. Like, like keep your fan fiction out of the canon. Essentially, again, keep it out of mainstream comic books. Keep that on the internet, right next to the smut.
Yeah,
like
it. I would not be sad. Honestly, I would not be sad if White Rose, which is the ship name, or at least one of the ship names, if White Rose never happened, because I honestly can see with where they're at now, like it could happen, but they could also just be friends.
Yeah,
they could just be friends because they're in a team together. You're gonna be close, and like I'm not gonna cry if it didn't happen. Like whatever.
Right. Yeah.
If it did happen, I'd be like, oh, cool. But I will say though, if they did it and it felt forced, I would be unhappy. I would not like it.
Yeah. Well, okay. So to make not even a comparison, because this is actually like the opposite side of the coin, for me. Recently there, in the X-Men comics, they've taken like the dynamic between Jean Grey, Scott Summers, and Wolverine.
Who are they? I'm just kidding.
God damn it, man. So Jean Grey is this girl, right, with red hair, and she's a telepath, right? And eventually she becomes kind of an agent of sort, and she becomes tapped into this powerful force called the Phoenix Force. It's this incredibly powerful.
Okay, cool. So she's like a bird person.
Okay, no.
Guys, I like to do that so much.
He does.
I don't know if they know if I'm ever kidding.
Yeah, I have a whole book about it behind you, and I'm just going to give that to you to read.
That does not
boil
it down at all. There are 2 whole bookcases behind it.
But the whole thing about their whole dynamic that's evolved over the years is that their relationship and how they view one another has always been a certain thing. And that's not to say that it should always be that certain thing, but their personalities really define why their relationship is the way that it is. And then within the past few years or so, they've tried to change it to fit the wants of, again, just no other way around it, fan fiction people online who want to make it something that it's never been. And it irked the other side of the fan base community, myself included, simply because with these personality traits, this doesn't make any sense.
So I will say I do actually know, I know a fair bit about X-Men comparatively to the rest of the stuff. I do know that their quote unquote relationship thing would be, a lot of people would be considered a triangle. However, I don't like that word because it's not actually a triangle, it's an L. But that's my own thing. I will always fight that.
That's fair.
Yeah, because the line doesn't go different through ways. It's not a a loop.
Yeah,
it's 2 people aimed at one person.
Yeah.
So I am curious. What did they change it to?
So they changed it to all of them being romantically linked to one another.
So they made it a true, not even a triangle, a star.
I guess so. Yeah.
So they made it poly, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
While I don't hate the idea of poly being stuff like that.
That is not the issue at all.
I know you and I both are very, very much supporters of it.
Right.
And I would absolutely love for there to be more. It's the word I'm looking for. Representation for LGBTQ and just a lot of stuff.
I've only seen a few in the comic books. And one that worked was one with one of my favorite characters, Constantine. He was in one for a while. Yeah.
Really? Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't know much about Constantine. The only thing I know is the movie.
Wow. Okay.
That's the only thing. I knew he was a character in a comic book, and that the movie is different. But that is about all I know. But
yeah,
I mean, I enjoyed the movie, but
whole lot different. I
would imagine. But I feel like that unless it happens over a big shift, or if they introduce another Earth, and it's like, oh, it's always been like this on this stuff, then I could see it. Or if like a thing happened and they changed it, then yeah. But like I feel like that at the very least 2 of those 3 members never displayed anything towards each other except hate.
The closest that Cyclops and Wolverine have come to each other is, I respect you because you play your position well. And that respect has always been, I'm going to respect you by staying out of each other's way. And that's been about the extent of their, their friendship, or their relationship. And, and they're co-workers essentially.
They're just like, I'm not going to hang out with you outside of school,
right? But
I'll work with you.
That's them on the best case, and so like to see them, just try to do something with it. I'm like, okay, if you want to do that, I'm actually fine with it, but you as the writer have to do the legwork.
Oh yeah, that's not just hey, it's here.
Yeah,
it's a hold up. These guys, they hate each other.
Yeah,
how are they not hating each other right now?
Yeah. So, it's things like that. It's basically boils down to lazy writing and doing things just for the sake of, just because you want to see
the clickbait, the free hook.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, I guess to bring this back around here, I thought that this RWBY Justice League movie would be a lot of that. Yeah. But surprisingly, like we already mentioned, for the most part, they really do a good job of remaining true to who these characters are.
I would agree.
Especially when you consider like the de-aged dynamic of the Justice League.
Yeah. Yeah. I do like that, not that they de-aged them. Like, I don't care about that. It's whatever. It's weird, but it's whatever. I do like that they didn't just say, oh, haha, quirky, they're, younger, but they're normal. No, they were like, this feels weird. I feel like I'm younger. Yeah. And they even showed characteristics of, like, someone who's 16 going through puberty, and, like, the differences behind that.
Yeah. And again, like, it just surprisingly worked well to the point where, like, I wonder about the people who worked on this movie. Like, were they strictly from the RWBY side, or were
I'm curious about that as well, because as far as I can tell, like we've said, neither side had, like, a character that we were just like, nope, you just met. Did you even look at the source material?
Right. Before we kind of go to the spoiler field section,
which is going to be most of what we're going to talk about.
Oh, yeah. What were kind of some of your concluding spoiler-free thoughts, and then what would you score this one?
I'm really glad I didn't say my total score, because I've been like dancing around it because I know you like to ask. Yeah. So, thoughts-wise, like final say on it, pleasantly surprised. Yep. I do not regret at all that I was going to watch it. I definitely needed somebody here who knew about DC more than just the casual, because like I said, there were characters in there that I didn't know and would not know, and you even had to go on a good tangent almost to explain a certain thing, just because it was deep. Like, I needed it. I really did need that to continue on with this, because it was weird, but it was fun. I enjoyed the action. I do like me some action, and I don't regret watching it at all. Yeah. Oddly enough, I really thought, like, we sat down for a good 5-10 minutes.
Preparing ourselves.
Distracting ourselves, I'm going to be honest. Like, I told you the tangent thing, like the startup, and then we just sat there and we're like, oh, so this. But now I feel like I'm probably a little more generous than some people are with these, because I try not to be too cynical with when I watch shows, because it'll be too easy to do. I could pick anything apart. It's human nature, in my opinion. But I'd give it a good. I'm in like the 7 or 8 zone. I don't know where it falls between there. Yeah, it's like maybe 7.5, maybe 7.8, but it's in that zone. I actually, if somebody else was like, "Hey, I want to watch this. You want to watch this with me?" I'd sit down and watch it again. Honestly. I wouldn't be like, "Oh, this is great." I'd be like, "All right, let's do it. Let's see it again." But yeah, that'd be my spot.
Yeah, I actually have very similar thoughts to you, where, again, just to reiterate some things we've already said, I think that this movie is so much better than it looks upon first glance.
And what you hear about reviews.
And what you hear about it, yeah. Because I also saw like some of the scores and reviews online. And I will say this, if you dig a little bit deeper, you will find some people who enjoyed this movie, you know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't dig at all.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I kind of clicked on just to see, like, let me see specifically some of the things about, you know, what people enjoyed. You know, there weren't anything spoilery, but there were people who enjoyed this movie. So that was, you know, which I thought was fair because this movie has a lot of good things going for it. You know, at the end of the day, though, movies are made with a certain audience in mind.
Yeah.
And you know, as we discussed, I'm not sure who this audience was or is.
Yeah.
With that being said, though, I feel that the people who made this movie did such a great job of taking two completely different things and making them blend enough to make a coherent movie that didn't shit the bed. The premise of this movie, once you figure out what's going on, is very simple and straightforward. But again, I think that's probably the best approach for something so vastly different.
I would agree.
I also think it's also good that they don't go too deep into the lore or deep doctrine of either of these.
Yeah, that's fair. I did say, not to steal your moment on this one, but I did say that like they minimalistically explained Ruby, and I don't think they explained much on DC side.
They didn't, and that's because I think that they maybe because of where they showed it at. By the way, you guys can catch this on HBO Max or just Max now, and it's also on Amazon Prime, I think.
I think it might be on Crunchyroll as well.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind then. Yeah, okay.
Let me confirm that actually.
Yeah. That would make sense. That they would have it someplace where Ruby is also.
I would hope, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know, ultimately, with a movie like this, it's gonna come down to, okay, we know that the combination is weird, but can you guys pull it off? And I think that for the most part, they do. Again, the story isn't anything that we haven't seen before. You got something there?
It's not on Crunchyroll.
It is not on Crunchyroll. That is interesting.
I'm actually kind of shocked.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe it will be soon. Yeah.
It's been months.
Yeah, it has.
I want to say I heard something about it coming to Crunchyroll, but maybe they were like, hey, you know, you can have it, but we have it for a set amount of time.
Maybe. Or maybe it's because Crunchyroll is more of like a distribution more so than its own network per se. Like there aren't Crunchyroll made cartoon or anime, are they? Like they're all it's like a hub, right?
It's closer. I haven't looked too deep, so with a grain of salt. But Crunchyroll is closer to like how Netflix has shows.
Okay, yeah. How they
quote
kind
unquote had shows.
Right.
They're like, hey, this is our show, but really that somebody else made it and they were just like,
and they license it for a certain amount of time.
Now Crunchyroll does have Crunchyroll actually now is part of the Funimation thing. They've combined.
That's right, yeah.
And it's on Crunchyroll. It was for a little bit on Funimation's side, but for some reason they moved it back over to Crunchyroll's side because originally I had Crunchyroll and then I got Funimation because I had Crunchyroll and I had VRV.
I haven't even heard of that.
It was a Crunchyroll owned thing that combined like High Div, I think, which is a more mature anime source, which is not on Crunchyroll anymore, by the way. I do miss that a little bit because some very interesting shows were on there. But VRV, I went for a while, and it had like Rooster Teeth, it had Crunchyroll, it had Boomerang, it had YouTube cartoons on there, I think, and like one other thing, like one or two other things. It was a lot of different like streaming things all in one for like $10 a month. So I was like, yes, please.
Yeah.
But then they broke apart for some reason. I don't know why. Probably because of Rooster Teeth stuff. And then I got Funimation because I was like, Crunchyroll is great, but I don't get enough out of it.
Fair.
So I went over to Funimation. And then shortly after me going over to Funimation, Crunchyroll, I think I might have had both. And then Crunchyroll was like, we're moving over to Funimation. So they're both over there. And then they were both like, we're actually going back over to Crunchyroll now. And they've been there since. And I was just like, all right, well, make up your mind.
Right. But, I think that this movie, overall, man, it was a fun experience. Yeah. Like you, I don't regret watching it. I do think that there are things holding it back, primarily being the audience. But overall, I'll give this movie a 7 out of 10. I thought it was a solid viewing experience. I wouldn't be offended watching this again.
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't hate watch it or anything.
Yeah, certainly wouldn't do that either. But yeah, that's kind of my feelings on this one, man. So now this is the part of the episode where we take a brief pause and we mosey on over to the spoiler field section. So for those of you who do not wish to be spoiled on this movie, for you hardcore Justice League and RWBY fans,
yeah,
this is the part where you guys take a break, hit the pause button, go watch the movie. Yep. And then come back. But for everyone else, you guys can go ahead and stick around here for this. So let me ask you this, Dylan, before we get into the spoilers. Mm-hmm. We've talked to death about how this is such a fucking bizarre combination, and after watching the movie, it's still a bizarre combination. What do you think would have blended better with RWBY and or Justice League?
Before I answer that, I have a question for you real quick.
Okay.
Why did you have two setups for the? Why did you have us actually walk over to another setup to do the spoiler filled section instead of just staying where we were?
Oh, because I wanted to change the scenery, change the ambiance.
That's fair. Fair. We were in a whole nother room. So.
Yeah, a whole nother room, whole nother set of comic books and whatnot.
That's fair. I did not realize you had even more.
Oh yeah.
Couldn't help myself. I'm sorry. But so, in all honesty. Something that would mesh better than this for RWBY, it
doesn't have to be a comic book, but like anything that's not RWBY. I mean, anything that's not, Justice League. What would have gone?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never looked at RWBY and been like, I want a crossover of anything. Like I mean, I don't tend to do that too much anyway, but just in general, I've literally never been like, what would be really cool is if these characters met.
Yeah.
The only thing that and I kind of wish I actually remembered to say this in the spoiler-free section because this might not be heard as much, but the only thing that I would find like maybe is that all of the main characters of RWBY, the first 8, the 2 teams at least, are actually based off of the RWBY's team is based off of nursery rhymes. RWBY is Red Riding Hood.
Oh.
Weiss is I'm blanking on the Snow White, I believe.
Snow White, okay.
Blake is Beauty and the Beast.
I was going to say, it's that Beauty and the Beast, okay.
And Yang is actually Goldilocks.
Really?
Yeah, you don't see it in this one because she grows out of it pretty early on in RWBY, but if you cut her hair, she will beat the dog shit out of you. Somebody does it once, and she calls him a monster, activates her semblance, and then just actually, I want to say, because it's in her trailer, I want to say she does and this is dipping into my very shallow sports knowledge, the something tumble. It's a boxing thing where you do a figure 8 motion to increase your swings.
Okay.
And she just does that into a dude. And you've seen how strong she is.
Yeah.
I think that dude died. I don't know.
Probably. If not, he probably wish he had died.
Actually, I think he did live because auras are ridiculous, but his eyes were swimming. But and the other 4 actually are based off of specifically mythological characters who cross-dressed.
That's a bizarre combination.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Jean is Jean of Arc. Jean Arc.
Oh, okay.
Ren is actually Mulan.
Kylo Ren.
No, it's Mulan.
Oh, okay.
Pyrrha is Achilles.
Oh, okay. I wonder where that Achilles cross-dressed.
I think he did in one of the legends. I think. Okay. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not up to date on that.
Also, when this is the spoiler section, so I can say this. When she dies, she actually gets shot by an arrow in the ankle.
God damn, yeah.
It is just oof. And then Nora is actually Thor.
Oh.
Because Thor has to cross-dress to get Mjolnir back.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, I'm probably going to mess up the name of it, but all their weapons have names, and Nora's is actually based off of Mjolnir.
Really?
It's Magnol? Magnol? I don't remember how to say it. But yeah, so like apart from maybe being like, oh, cool, they can find who they're like based off of.
Yeah.
There's also a character named Penny who's based off of Pinocchio. She's a robot trying to be a real girl.
Oh, yeah. That's a little on the nose, isn't it?
Shut up. She actually also, when she lies, she hiccups instead of her nose growing. It's super cute, but and very sad later on.
Ooh.
Yeah. I'll tell you outside of this because that's a super spoiler.
Gotcha.
But anyway, aside from them like literally bumping into like their namesakes, and I don't even want that. Like I got nothing.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, not everything needs to cross over.
Agreed.
You know,
in my opinion, it's like bacon. I love bacon. I don't think it needs to be on everything.
Yeah.
You can be mad at me if you want. I don't think bacon needs to be on everything.
No, you're right. I'm with you on that. Have you had bacon pancakes though?
Oh, they're delicious.
Bacon pancakes, making bacon pancakes.
Bacon pancakes.
Take some bacon and you put them in a pancake.
My favorite variant of that is the crossover song one.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Empire State of Mind and
what's
it's
so smooth.
Yeah, Adventure Time. Yeah, that was great. Yeah. So let's talk about some spoilers now.
Yeah.
All right. What would you like to start?
That's a lovely question.
There's a lot of places to start here. So
since you're closer to what I would imagine average listener would be, I'll have you ask where I should start. Like give me a prompt. Where would you start?
Okay.
As a question.
All right. So let's start at the simulation theory.
Okay.
Not the theory that we ourselves are living in a simulation, which may or may not be true.
That's not a theory.
But in terms of the characters in this movie, they come to find out, what would you say, about maybe halfway through?
They hint at it immediately.
Yeah, it's with Jessica and what was his name?
I'm gonna be honest, I forget who Jessica is.
Green Lantern.
Green Lantern.
Yeah.
So the one who's mostly with Jessica was John.
Yeah, John. Yeah, I knew I was close to that. But Jessica and John, they're the first ones to
pick up on it. Oh
yeah.
Which I do love how Jessica was portrayed in this. I don't know the character, so let me say first, the two characters that I did not know at all were that specific Green Lantern and
Vixen.
Vixen.
Yeah.
Vixen?
Yeah.
With an N? Okay. Those two, I did not know. I've seen Vixen before.
Yeah.
And I, like, when you told me her powers, I was like, oh, yeah, cool. I've heard of her before once.
Yeah.
But I had literally never heard of, I knew there were female Green Lanterns.
Right.
But I'd never known one came into the spotlight like that.
Yeah.
Because I'm, again, not a huge comic book fan. I think it's really cool.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. And you told me the whole story behind her ring, which I think, honestly, I would not have liked the character as much if I didn't know that. And
I can see that, like knowing, just what I know about Jessica Cruz and really maybe like this version of her as well, just because seeing, and again, it goes back into the whole character integrity thing that we spoke about. They played so much into Jessica being able to overcome, immense guilt, grief, anxiety, and then that comes back.
I'm going to be honest. So one of the easiest ways to get me emotionally connected to a show is to have somebody who has genuine anxiety, depression, and panic attacks. Because I have those. I have all of those. I'm doing good. Nobody needs to worry, but to have a character talk about, feel, and go through some of the things that go through my head, it just gets me immediately. So, like, there is a scene where she has a panic attack. I don't know if you picked up on it. I don't know. Do you have anxiety and all that? I know everybody has, like, anxiety, but I'm genuinely curious if you're comfortable sharing.
Oh, yeah, I'm comfortable sharing. I guess I'm gonna. I'm gonna say I think I'm privileged enough to say no because I have to think about it.
That's possibly fair. I mean, granted, you could also with society, it's this way that way. Neither of us are doctors.
That's true. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Or I could have it in society, just fucking normalize the hell out of it. And I think it's that is also very possible.
But I as just a general blanket, I would say that if you with the little bit I know about you and the way you answered that, I would say maybe not. That doesn't mean you don't understand. That doesn't mean you can't connect. But maybe not. And that, honestly...
I think on occasions I have.
Yeah, everybody gets anxiety and depression and all that. And I, honestly, hell yeah. Good on you for that. I wish no one did. And I think that, like, everybody agrees to that. But I think that unless you have to deal with it on the daily, it doesn't hit the same.
Yeah.
To be like, I genuinely wish that no one had to deal with it. It's rough. But that's not what this is for. When I saw her start to have a panic attack.
Yeah.
And first off, I knew the moment they paired her with Jean, I was like, oh, that's a good pairing. That is, I was a little worried that they might try to make it romantic.
Yeah.
Because Jean is where it's at. Jean just fairly recently learned that Pyrrha loves him. They love each other.
Yeah.
And she died.
And now she's gone. Yeah.
Like immediately afterwards. We're talking maybe an hour afterwards. I don't know if I told you that.
That close?
Yeah. He was literally launched off in a locker. I can't explain that. Just go watch the show. He was launched off in a locker away because he was going to go try and help her and fight it. And she knew, I'm going to be honest, I think she knew she was going to die.
Yeah. Ooh.
I think she knew that she wasn't going to be able to beat this, but she had to try.
Yeah.
Because there's another thing that I didn't tell you about any of these. There are 4 maidens who are actual magic.
Oh.
Actual, like not semblances, magic.
Like magic personified.
Wow. Like actual, like a wizard magic kind of thing. Not the same, more like a sorcerer, but
yeah.
And they're oddly enough, they're all maidens. They're all females. And Pyrrha actually acquired or she was supposed to be the next one for one of the 4. But the bad person, the villain, Cinder, pardon me. The Cinder, the person who forcibly took it, which isn't supposed to happen, is the one that killed her with the powers. But because of all that, she was like, I'm the one that was picked for this. She has the burden of the world on her back, essentially. She ran up there. She put up a good fight. Yeah. She fought hard. But she did take the shot to the ankle, which was, I'm going to be honest, that episode is probably the first spot that I ended up crying in RWBY.
Oh.
Because, like, she finally confessed her love, kissed him, sent him off, self-sacrificed, and then she didn't even, like, thankfully it wasn't that painful, I guess, but, like, she took the arrow to the ankle, fell to her knee, and then Cinder disintegrated her.
Ooh.
Yeah, she used Defy powers because she had the fire magic maiden, and just ashed her.
Damn.
It's cold.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I got distracted again. What was the prompt?
You're talking about Jessica and John and about how when they were paired together.
Yes. I was glad that they didn't try to force that. It did not feel like they even tried to allude to it. Jean was the right person to pair with her because he, in this spot, he has his semblance. But when he first starts, he doesn't even know how to use aura. He's the equivalent of, like, taking you. Yeah. Before I talk to you about this almost at all. Right. Telling you, hey, there are hunters and huntresses that fight the Grimm, telling you about the Grimm, and then plopping you in the world. He's not, like, from another world. Right. But he just didn't go to any combat school. Basically, he was the equivalent of, like, let's say they're in, like, high school, right? It was like, you got elementary school. He did not go to middle school. He was, like, homeschooled, but he mostly, like, helped on the farm. He didn't actually, but this is the scenario. Yeah. And then he got plopped into high school with, like, fake transactions. Shit. So, like, he didn't know how to do most of this stuff. Pyrrha took him under her wing, and helped him out through it. But because of that, because through, like, half the show, he doesn't know what his semblance is. He's the only person that's really going to be able to get with her on a emotional level and be like, look, if you can't do it, it's okay. And that's the most heavy hitting.
Yeah.
Like, ooh. And I think the combination of those two were perfect.
You know, I got that same feeling. And, you know, like how much you knew about Jessica is how much you knew about John.
Yeah.
and you filled me in on him and on the events that very recently occurred with him in this point in the canon. And
which is hard to figure out exactly still. I still don't know exactly where they're at.
That is very hard to say still, right? So, I mean, I guess one thing, though, that, you know, not to get too far off topic from the Jessica and John stuff, but, you know, if anything, right, the ending told us that they were living in a manufactured reality.
Yeah, they were full Matrix.
Yeah, full Matrix. Like, yeah.
I wouldn't say full Matrix because, like, not everybody was. But
yeah, that's true.
Actually, here's one interesting thing that did take a little bit away from the quote-unquote, like, canon possibility. Like, they have the tech to do what they did, like, be in a simulation.
Yeah.
Because whenever they wake up at the end of it, you know, they have the goggles on, they wake up, and they're like, that must not have been the training simulation. Like, technically, they could do that. They have the tech for it. Like, they have flying ships and stuff like that. I imagine they could do it. But they never did that in the show. Like, they never got into a pod to have a training thing. Like, they set up a like, sort of hollow room.
Yeah.
Like, the closest thing I could say is, you know, like, the X-Men hollow room.
Yeah.
Without, like, the background. Like, it didn't look like they were outside or anything like that. But, like, they could be, like...
Danger room.
Yeah. They had, like, you know, blocks in the way and stuff like this, and you could change where they were. But that's how they trained. They didn't
put on VR headsets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that was weird.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many questions, right? And like we said earlier, that's got to be what part 2 is all about.
Yeah.
So, like, who was behind this? You know, why? And then you have to also wonder, how did they get them?
How did they connect these two worlds?
Yeah. Well, how did they connect those two worlds? And also, how did they get the heroes of RWBY into that situation?
Yeah. Well, granted, they kind of explained that, where it was that they sat down for their quote-unquote simulation.
Oh, okay.
And then they got hacked or whatever across.
Okay, well, yeah, that lines up then.
It was more alluded to than said.
Yeah.
But, like, that still doesn't explain how they breached universes.
That doesn't either. So here's the thing I can say about Kilgore, which, by the way, we're in full spoilers. Kilgore is the big bad villain here.
Well, one of.
It
is confirmed there are two. And it's a male from RWBY. So my theory, I'm going to go ahead and toss it out before I forget, is Arthur Watt, I think that's what I said his last name was. I'm bad with names, guys. But it's Arthur. That little shithead.
Not the anteater.
But yeah, it's him, I think. Because that's the only person who's evil, a guy, and is going to be smart enough to mess with any tech.
Yeah.
Because there are other evil males, but one of them is just kind of psychotic. The other one is more of a brute force, and he's not super evil. And the third one's dead.
Oh.
Now, unless they do Torchwick, Roman Torchwick, who's the third one? Who's dead? Even he's not that smart, but he could work. He was a people person.
Yeah.
He could get it all together. But you visibly saw him get eaten by a Grim.
Oh, well.
Yeah, no, he's done.
Yeah, he dead then.
Yeah. I guess there's a way. Sorry, there's technically a way for it to sort of be him, but not him. If Neo, my favorite villain actually in the whole show.
It's interesting that there's a villain called Neo. We were just talking about the Matrix. And
oh, yeah, but it's not like towards that. It's actually towards Neapolitan ice cream. So in the RWBY universe, you have names that are alluded to colors. They're connected to colors.
Is that
Ruby
common
Rose,
across anime?
No.
Okay, because I know Dragon Ball Z does it a lot. A lot of name
That's
association
true.
with.
Yeah. I think that's more of like an Asian inspiring kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
But with this one, they actually specifically have an in-lore reason, and it's that there was like a revolution of sorts. Like they got cracked down on a government cracked down on art. and like really pushed because they were like, this is bad or whatever. They don't super go into it.
Yeah.
But there was a revolution, and part of the, and it went away, but part of the like fighting back they did was they named people after artistic stuff. Ruby, Rose.
Yeah.
Blake, Belladonna, Flower, you know. Weiss, Schnee. Now that one's, Weiss is kind of close to white, you know, but Schnee is more, if somebody else knows something, you know, whatever. I just don't know why that one. It's just, you know, whatever. But, and then Yang's name is actually Yang Xiaolong. Yeah. I don't know that one.
Okay.
But yeah, like it's a lot of names are connected to like colors or things and stuff like that. But Neo is Neapolitan ice cream. She is the 3 colors of Neapolitan ice cream. She has like different colored hair, but she doesn't talk. She has never had a voice line.
Really?
Never.
You know, that makes sense because my Neapolitan ice cream has never spoken either.
Yeah, mine too. Totally.
Wait, why are you looking around?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Jeff.
Jeff's not going to bill you. Don't look at Jeff. I told you not to look at him.
He started blinking real hard again. But her semblance, which is her power in the universe, is to do illusions, essentially. She can look like whoever she wants and do some bigger ones, but it's harder. She does, on occasion, look like Torchwick, because they were in cahoots. I think she liked him a little more than, like, just looking up to him. I think she did love him a little. It was not reciprocated. Their age gap was a good bit. Neo's age isn't confirmed, but it's theorized that she's about 18.
Okay.
But he is probably, he could be 30.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
So it was just like a...
Yeah.
But she's a damaged person, and she really latched onto him. So, like, technically, if you really wanted to push it, she could look like him, but, like, she can't talk, even in those forms. So... And we're for those who are current on RWBY, we're not talking about the RWBY Volume 9, and you know why. That'd be a whole like 30 minutes to whatever. But yeah, that's like he's the only person I can think of.
Yeah,
Arthur.
I mean, I guess we'll see come October. Hopefully, is when Part 2 comes out.
31st.
But you know, just going back here a little bit. So with Kilgore, at least being like the known villain in this one, you know, he's the villain reveal that we get.
Yeah.
I thought that was equal parts bold and questionable in terms of using him as the big bad, simply because, I mean, he's been around for, you know, since like, I want to say like maybe the late 80s, you know, so he's been around for a decent amount of time, but I mean, he's rarely used as like the, you know, the big bad threat on a scale like this. You know, he's primarily a Flash villain, and you know, he's got that. Think like very similar to like a kind of a Brainiac and an Ultron kind of combined. You know, where you know he for most of his comic book existence, he never really technically had like a real physical presence. You know what I mean? He was more. Don't want to say techno-organic, that's Marvel, but he was more, you know, kind of like a technological virus-based entity. Okay. You know, he does have the capabilities, you know, to pull a stunt like this in terms of reaching into another universe, because there's plenty of those in DC.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, pulling something off like this would definitely require that the other person be immensely powerful, because they trapped Kilgore inside the simulation as well.
And I will say that it actually, I didn't think about it until you explained it just now, that it almost does make sense then that Kilgore was used, because you said he's more of like he's not a main stage villain. Yeah. Is he often in like cahoots with others? Is he like teamed up with others, or is he just like a shows up here and there, gets dealt with pretty easy to like fill in between other?
I would say closer to the latter, but I mean he has, you know, think of like the Riddler with Batman, where like Riddler is always a threat, but you know
Okay.
He's rarely used as like the big bad main threat, but when he is, it really means something.
That's fair. Okay.
Similar kind of thing here with Kilgore. Like he's definitely formidable. It's just you rarely see him used in a position like this, and maybe the Riddler is a bad choice for comparison.
It got me to understand it. So, but I think that might actually play into this choice though, because when you first see him, he's like, yeah, it's me. I'm smarter than, I think he even brought up like...
he said Brainiac and I think said Vandal Savage.
Vandal Savage is what it was. I was going to say, I almost said a different... Yeah. So it was like him being like, I wasn't trapped here. I chose to do this. I'm smarter than these guys. He was like trying to spin it and like push himself a little further. But that might... I think that might be what they were going for. Him being like, oh, this dude's not normally, and he actually isn't because he did get trapped.
Yeah, and it's going to have to be a super powerful person because, like, this is what Kilgore does. You know what I mean?
It's weird, really weird thing, though, is aside from the fact that Arthur is essentially a coding genius.
Yeah.
He doesn't have power like that. I actually don't know his semblance.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting, right?
Gravity? No, he did. He used his hacking for that.
So, did you like them going with the simulation route for the plot here?
I didn't hate it. I think I accept it easier than if they used any other method.
Same. Yeah.
Like I if someone was like, "Oh, what would you do better?" I'd be like, "Nothing. I don't know."
Yeah. Like, how would you get these two to cross together? So, like, I thought originally that they were going to do the whole thing of, you guys were similar to what they did. You guys were in a fight with so-and-so or whoever, and you got flung into...
See, I thought that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And that actually, that brings up that I like how they did the villain reveal on this a lot, actually. It was slowly enough over time, and they kept showing the same fight image over and over and over.
Yeah, it was distorted.
And then we even whenever they finished undistorting it and we had a clear shot, I had you pause it, go back to it, and we sat there for a little bit.
Yeah,
just stared at it.
You know why? And that's on me. Like, that Kilgore is based off like the new 52 version of Kilgore, which is like the 2011 version, right? And I just I'm so rarely used to seeing him in like a full body, mechanicalized body,
Oh yeah, he was like 2-3 stories tall.
Oh yeah, he was enormous, and so like immediately he looked familiar, but off the bat I couldn't. Yeah. And
whenever I first glanced at it, because it had been so long since I've seen it, I thought he was a specific Grimm or like a different variant of a Grimm that got into their world somehow.
Yeah, that's what I thought, or like an amalgamation like of two bad guys from each universe.
Yeah. Because there's actually a Grimm called the Hound that was made off of a person. They corrupted a person and turned it into a Grimm, and I was like, oh dang, did they like take a villain or somebody strong and like corrupt him as a Grimm and send him back over? But no, it was just Kilgore.
And like you, I like the reveal as well, and they did a lot of things that made sense. Like they had him possess Barry, which for multiple reasons makes sense. He is more of a Flash baddie.
Yeah, it's fair. Has he ever possessed somebody before this?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So he kind of can do that. Okay. I just figured because they're in a virtual space that he'd be able to do it. But I didn't know if it was like this is a new thing for him or what.
Yeah. It goes into like part of like the virus aspect of who he is,
Okay.
Yeah, so the Kilgore reveal was it was a good reveal, and I think they did enough. Well, let me ask you that. Do you think they did enough to explain to viewers about Kilgore and what he can do, or do you think they could have done better?
So, I had only heard Kilgore. I even thought he was somebody else because I was like, oh, I've heard Kilgore, but I don't remember who he is off the top of my head. So I feel like they alluded enough, much like for the RWBY stuff. They alluded enough to get by. But again, if you have to either be part of one camp or the other, or have a member of each camp sitting with you as you watch this to be like, all right, guys, what's happening here?
Or be that rare person who is balls deep in both.
Honestly, good on you if you are. Like, you have more time than me.
Right.
Or you cut out enough time than me, because, like, ooh.
Yeah, so what you think of, so, you know, throughout the movie, you mentioned on multiple occasions how it was hard to place when in the RWBY canon this takes place in, right? And once it was revealed that it was a simulation, you know, I threw out the idea that is it possibly because these are kind of meshed together memories, and do you think that's maybe why? Do you think that was done intentionally?
I think it was. I really do think it was, because as we saw over time, very early on we realized it was memory based. Because I even told you a few times that, like, whenever they're like, oh, when everything gets weird, we got to go talk to Ozpin. I was like, they said Ozpin, not Oscar or Ozpin. And, like, I was like, all right, it could still be Oscar, you know. And for those who are on the DC side of it, or for some reason still listening to the spoiler part and have only seen, like, 2 seasons of RWBY, Ozpin is the headmaster of the school who dies at, like, the end of season 2 with the fall of Beacon, which they have memories of pop up here and there in the show. So I was like, oh, but then they saw him and he got all glitchy. Yeah. And I was like, knew it. Yeah. Knew it. And he, like, even turns into Oscar for a little bit, because Ozpin is spirit-wise invincible. Every time he dies, he just goes into a new host and their souls fuse. Oh. It's a little messed up, but he doesn't have control over it. One of the gods cursed him towards it. But so when man, my ADHD is kicking me pretty hard today. What was the prompt again? Yeah,
so we were talking about do you think it was done on purpose, like the
memories thing? Yeah. So I think it was done on purpose, and slowly over the whole course, like I said, with the Ozpin being there, and then being glitchy to Oscar, and then after a little bit they just got rid of him.
Right.
Yeah, they just him and Glinda Goodwich, which was the female teacher's name, by the way.
Gotcha.
Glinda Goodwich, Wizard of Oz, Ozpin, Glinda. There's a lot of connections. Okay. That's also why he's green primarily and all that.
Oh, okay. So
they both are. They just poof pretty early on, and it explained later on that, like, that's probably too hard to keep track of what memory connection they are to it. So he just, I guess, gutted that part of the code. But I think I liked how they did it. Yeah. I liked how they did the memory stuff, and how it slowly over time, for such a small movie, I feel like it kind of had a slow burn on that specific part.
You're right, and I think a lot of it had to do with, because if you think about it like this, right, the first half of the movie is centered around not just figuring out the mystery, but also getting the team together.
True. They are very separate at the start.
Yeah. And I think that was a smart play, because by and large, even though this is a short movie, I don't know if the bare bones plot could justify that runtime. And so having them be separate, so having them be separate was a smart way to kind of justify that runtime, because now we're invested in seeing, like, the separate pairings and how they get along with one another, and seeing how they all reconvene. I wasn't even sure, because I knew that there was going to be a part 2, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't even sure if Batman and Weiss were going to reconvene with the rest of the party.
Yeah, they didn't for a long time.
Yeah.
And also, with that, actually, it did bring up another point that I pointed out to you pretty early on, that they hinted, if you know the RWBY world, way early that something weird's happening. Because with Diana was with Blake, and Blake was in her home country, which is an island down in the bottom right, I want to say. And it's like 2 weeks at least travel from Beacon, and she showed up at Beacon.
Oh, yeah.
Within a day.
Right.
So the second that happened, I was like, that can't happen. No, this is weird.
Yeah, because we spoke about that too, right? Because it gets tricky, right? Because you're like, there's either like a lot of lazy writing and jetpacking going on, or there's something else afoot here.
And it's like some super foreshadowing. But I have a question. If if I had not been there to explain that specific part, would you have thought anything was weird there?
No.
You would have thought they were just like down the road or whatever?
Oh yeah, I don't know the layout. I don't know how long it takes to get from A to B.
Yeah.
You know?
Because like it's honestly, Atlas is probably where Weiss was, is probably even further away from Beacon. I think it's at least the same distance. They're across the whole world from each other basically. And I really do like how they sprinkled in enough like Easter eggs, well, not foreshadowing more so than Easter eggs, like foreshadowing of being like, hey, this stuff's not right. Yeah. Like there's glitches. People are getting here way too fast. You're remembering things from different parts of the everything. Again, with the outfits, there are 3 different outfit changes, maybe 4 outfit changes with Volume 9. I can't remember off the top of my head. Forgive me. And they're in, Arc 1 outfits. Yeah. But they remember some stuff from like right afterwards when they change to their second outfits, or very shortly afterwards change to their second outfits. And where they wake up is, I want to say, Atlas, which means that they had already all split up and gotten back together in Atlas. So, like, I want to say, like, over a month has gone by since the fall of Beacon, at least. And they're in those specific outfits. Jean gets a haircut. Everybody gets outfit changes. So it's just, it was really interesting to have it be like, all right, because there's like 4 different times during the movie where I was like, oh, okay, they must be here. Canonically. And then I was like, well, no, they wouldn't know that. So are they here? No, they're over here. And it was kind of fun for me to be like, where are they?
Yeah. Yeah, and it was fun for me just trying to, pick your brain and seeing you figure out this stuff out, for me.
I'm glad that was at least enjoyable then.
Oh, yeah.
I enjoyed it, but like it was it's I'm not always the most entertaining whenever I get like that. I'll be like super in my own head.
I mean, again, you when you're sitting, with a newbie to it, that's, super useful because the movie, again, like this movie was not made for people who aren't familiar with RWBY.
And also, I want to say it legitimately wasn't made for someone who is only familiar with RWBY.
Yeah, either. Yeah, you're right.
And nor was it, somebody who's only familiar with DC. You have to know at least a fair bit of both.
I think that part of the reason why they used the Justice League members is because they were banking off the fact that even if you don't know dog shit about DC, you've heard of Superman, you've seen Batman, you know Wonder Woman. I think they were banking off
the Flash.
Yeah, they were banking off of that. I think.
You at least know a Green Lantern.
Yeah, you know of a Green Lantern. Yeah.
Vixen, was that there?
Yeah.
That one?
Yeah, that one. That's the one who, if you're not a DC fan, then you probably
like a pretty deep one, I would say.
Yeah.
And of course, can't forget Cyborg.
Of course, yeah.
But again, Cyborg was the one character who was in Teen Titans
and Justice League. Yeah, yeah.
Which love Cyborg, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Sick as hell.
Booyah.
Cold line, honestly.
Yeah.
But no, I think it really keeps coming back to, I don't know who this was for.
Mm-hmm. And that's like the biggest hang up, right, with this movie. Because once you figure out who this movie is for, then you can figure out what it is you want to do.
Yeah, you know? It almost feels like they did almost the bad of fanfic being a thing, of like pulling fanfic forward, but they managed to do it well enough to like get a pass.
Yeah, so, here's the thing, like we both gave it around a 7 out of 10. Yeah. Somewhere around there.
I was a little over, but that's probably bias.
But I'll say this. I think that this was, with the scores that we gave it, I think it was the best that this could have been.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Like there is no universe that exists where this type of crossover is a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
It can't,
I was very ready to, at the end of that movie, come in here and be like, oh, guys.
Yeah.
Guys.
Yeah. The odds of this being like a 4 out of 10 were way higher than it being a 7 or an 8.
Oh yeah,
you know,
and I even expected it to be lower than that. I expected a 2 or a 3. Honestly,
yeah, you know, there's a certain point on like the grading scale where like you get a point for spelling Justice League correctly. You know,
you're like, oh, you know, it was set in Ruby and they put Ruby's name first. That's a point.
That's
there
right. That's a point. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that like once the mystery of the simulation was resolved, that did the movie a favor in terms of answering one question and giving us another, you know?
Yeah.
So, okay, boom, we realize it's a simulation, but who's behind it? Okay, boom, Kilgore's behind it, but someone else was working with him and they trapped his ass in here too.
Yeah.
Who was that? And I think that's probably the hook to keep us, you know, for part 2. The issue with that, however, is that they didn't commit to the cliffhanger.
Yeah. I really at least wanted it. So in RWBY, we all know DC is about cliffhangers.
Yeah.
RWBY is also pretty about cliffhangers. It's normally at the end of the season, you know, but there's a good 2 or 3 spots where at the end of it I was like, no, another episode. Give me like one more. Come on, you can't do this to me. But here's the thing: this didn't even follow my opinion of the standard RWBY cliffhanger, because normally you get at least like a silhouette style of who the next person is. Like Salem is the big bad, right? That's her name. We saw her well before we learned about her.
Yeah.
Because at the end of, I want to say, volume 2, ? You see like the grim homeworld, or not homeworld, but home area.
Right.
And you see a lady in a very evil looking outfit walking up, and then she turns around and you're like, who the hell are you?
You know, something to keep in mind though, I think, and I mean, again, you can definitely correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think maybe we've been looking at this from the wrong angle, right? Okay. We've been looking at someone who can out technology Kilgore, when maybe we should be looking at someone who just has the overall raw magical power to make something like that. Like Kilgore created the version of the world because he was running the program.
Yeah.
And all the other person has to do is have the power to keep Kilgore in there.
So here's the issue with that.
Okay.
I don't know of anybody who can do that.
Oh, okay.
Like, yes, there is magic.
Yeah.
But it is, I'm like 90% sure, 99% sure it is hard set that the people who have the magic, the 4 maidens, are female, and they said he multiple times.
They did say he, yeah.
So that's the only quote-unquote magic. The only other person who has magic is Ozpin, who actually created the 4 maidens, by the way.
Yeah.
He gave them his power. Most of it, actually. But Ozpin's not going to be the one that does it. That'd be stupid.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
He's morally gray in a few spots, but he's a good guy.
Something like that would be out of pocket for him, right?
Yeah, it'd be very, very out of pocket. Even if it was like, oh, this is a training thing. It's like, no, he would not take heroes from another world and put them in there. He also would not work with Kilgore.
That also begs the question then, what do we do for part 2?
I forgot about it, but I had a theory. So for part 2, right? Mm-hmm. I would not be shocked if it takes place
in the DC.
In the DC.
I was wondering the same thing.
Now, it could not. I could, whatever, but I'm also really curious how they would do that.
Yeah.
Because they had
So are they going to do the DC art style?
They would have to.
And then you have to think about, well, what do these RWBY characters look like in a DC? And are they going to age them up, or are they going to be the same age?
If they age them up, the internet's going to have a fun time.
Oh.
The internet already has a fun time. But that's going to be weird.
Yeah, it would be. I would say, at least, because I was with you, you know what I mean? I had the same kind of thought. They could go to the DC universe.
Mm-hmm. The other end of it, which I feel like that's what they might do and almost even should do to really balance it out.
Yeah. Or hell, they could split the difference. Maybe have half of it.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I mean, Jimmy Neutron did that.
Oh yeah, with was it
Timmy? Fairly Odd Parents?
Fairly Odd Parents, that's right. Yeah.
Wild movie.
That was the crossover. Yeah.
Really well done too.
It was.
like just graphically. Like they could do that. I would be very fascinated to see how all the RWBY characters function in DC world.
Yeah.
Because I was when we sat down, I explained to you when I explained semblances, I was like, hey, they have one semblance.
Yeah, you had to give me a dissertation on this stuff.
I did. I damn near got a presentation PowerPoint out. Like I was a step before it.
That's right.
So I was always like, how much of a nerf are they going to give Superman?
Mm-hmm. And they did. You know, they had to nerf him.
Yeah. Granted, near the end there, he still like could fly and had his eye vision.
Right.
And didn't super. They kind of just swept it under the rug of he's an alien.
They did, right? Yeah, because, Diana was like, I get my powers because, from the gods. And Clark gets his powers from the sun. And I was like, well, you're not wrong.
But even I know, I was like, And like, everybody else's powers became semblancy.
Yeah.
Except his.
Except his, right?
That would be, I would say that is one of the hang-ups. And I do not know how they could have done it better.
Yeah.
Straight up, I do not know.
Yeah, how do you do that with Superman,
I don't think he can.
Yeah.
He did have an aura.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Yeah. I can say this, though. Like, if they do decide to put, the RWBY characters in the DC universe, to me, that only really makes me wish more they had used the Teen Titans instead of the Justice League.
I would agree. I do agree, actually, as well. But I'm also very curious, how are their magic, or how is not magic, but how are their powers going to work?
So I was thinking about that, too. They would have to be, they would be altered into being metahumans.
Yeah.
That would have to be.
That'd be the only way possible.
Yeah. Yeah, and that would have to be the only way that I can think of.
That might be the one thing that would hang them up from doing it in the DC universe.
Yeah. Well, that, and also, we're assuming that the real big bad is from the RWBY universe. And
that's true.
If that's the case, then why would...
They wouldn't be able to bring it over to DC.
Yeah, and why would they be there anyway?
Mm-hmm. Also, well, actually, this one's not that bad because I think there are, like, animalistic characters in DC in some instances, but Blake has cat ears.
Hey, I don't think that's a huge hang-up.
I was like, are they still going to have the... And then I was like, wait, no, there's definitely people with, like, tails and all kinds of stuff over there. It'd be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be fine.
You know what I forget? Every time I forget about it, and when I think about it, I don't remember if Blake has human ears, too. Yeah, exactly.
One of them has a bow, right?
Blake had a bow. It shows you hints of it. Whenever you first find Blake, she actually had a bow covering her cat ears, which, actually, I know why. They initially did that because animating the ears and the motion of the ears was too time consuming. So they hid them underneath the bow until they got the better programming.
Yeah.
Now you did see her with the ears outside of it, but she would put them back on to hide.
That's some Akira Toriyama Frieza Phase 3 type stuff,
right? But yeah, it would be super interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, so that would be interesting in seeing as to what they do for part 2. And that is something I have to say. I would have ended it differently because even though there's still questions, it did still feel a bit conclusive. Right?
It tied up pretty well.
Yeah.
I would have liked if they, like, I don't know, if they would have had, like, Kilgore laugh in the background, be like, oh, they thought they got rid of him, but they didn't.
Yeah.
Or maybe at the end of it, like, they wake up and they're like, oh, cool. But then, much like we checked, there was no after credit scene.
Yeah.
Have an after credit scene of being like, oh, but wait.
Right.
Ooh.
Yeah, we scrolled through the entire credits, no after credit scene.
We were like 10 seconds, 5 seconds of it. I'll take anything.
Something.
Give me something.
Yeah, a picture,
Anything. I need answers.
Right.
Or at least more bait.
Yeah, more bait. Yeah, a reason to come back.
Aside from the commitment.
Yeah. Because... yeah, I mean, the way that it ends, Jessica Cruz, and again, I'm assuming that this is from her semblance and not from her power ring, because her power ring shouldn't be able to do that.
So
open up doors to different dimensions.
Semblances shouldn't either. So
okay.
What I think went down with that was, and this is going to pull up another issue I have with the movie, but I think they hacked into the code of what was putting them there.
Right.
So they really just hijacked what was already there and used her semblance version of her power, which was to see the truth. That
is another glaring issue, though, that we should talk about.
Yeah, like I said, I was going to bring it up. So, one of the few characters that I personally feel that they did weird at certain points was Weiss seemed smarter than she was. Not to say Weiss was not very intelligent.
Yeah.
But they put Weiss closer to Bruce's level of intelligence, and I just don't think she is. She might be the smartest out of like the two teams, Ruby and Juniper, which is the other team.
Okay.
But she's just not there. I've never seen her hack, but she hacked, kinda.
Yeah, and we talked about that because I would have never noticed or known had you not told me that she didn't have that kind of capability.
It's not a huge stretch, but the source material has just never shown her doing anything like that.
And I get that.
Because like she is smart. She did have to deal with technology and stuff like that, but she's literally never hacked in the show. Like there are instances where they kind of can, but it's always been somebody else, I want to say, that does like most of the stuff. It was interesting.
Yeah. And the only potential answer I had for that was, they just wanted to show the similarities between the two teams as much as they could, like the synergy, Like,
oh, this person takes this role, this person takes this role. Like Diana and Blake being like, we grew up as warriors. We had to, which I sort of quickly explained it to you on that one, but she literally grew up in the White Fang, in that organization. It was not always a terrorist organization, but she grew up having to learn how to fight and all that. And in her lifespan of it doing it, it turned terrorist, and she learned how to fight in that.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty fucking hardcore.
And then of course I knew they were going to do Ruby and Superman.
Yeah.
But I will say another issue I had with it was that and correct me if I'm wrong on this, correct me if it's just me seeing this from a different angle, I feel like Superman harped on her too hard to just spin it around and be like uplifting right afterwards.
Yeah, so he did, right? And maybe that's also part of like the pacing issue of it. Like,
and it
maybe
could even be the quote unquote hormones.
Hormones, yeah, them being teenagers again. Those are the two angles I was thinking about that from. But that's also just me trying to defend the movie.
Yeah, which is good. Which is, I don't know about good, but it's not bad.
Right. Yeah, because I was thinking the same thing. Like, the angles that Superman is coming at this with, it did feel more like a teenage version of Superman. And so I had to keep that in mind. Which
brings us actually over to Batman's character, who is the one of two, I want to say, that were actually faunus, which were creature people.
Yep.
But they're sort of called creature. We're not unpacking that. But they're basically a human who has a single aspect of an animal.
Right.
A lot of them do have superior night vision. They do not say that in the thing, but it is canon. But they'll either have like animals' ears, like in Blake's case, she has cat ears.
Yep.
Or there's a character named Sun, who has a monkey tail. Sun.
Yeah,
it's after
they gave Vixen a fox tail.
Yeah. Which is one of her things, a fox?
Not necessarily. I mean, I guess if she wanted to, she could tap into like the agility of a fox. But I mean, why do that when she can do,
like a gorilla, like 3 times.
Yeah. Granted,
I don't know what you do some of those ones for a gorilla, but it wasn't that bad in my opinion.
Yeah.
It fit okay. But Batman was a faunus, which is the name of the race. And I thought that was actually a cool thing to do, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The joke was there, and whenever I saw the trailer, they really joked about it a lot.
Oh, did they?
Only part you saw of him was whenever he shows up all dramatically.
Oh, yeah.
You saw him do that, and then John be like, okay, he's really cool.
Yeah. And that is kind of like an ongoing thing with Batman, people being like, oh, he's so goddamn cool.
I mean, he is.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
I even said it in the movie when we were sitting there. I was like, he waited.
Oh yeah.
He waited back there because the rest of his group showed up. And he waited back there like, all right, hold up, it's not time yet. It's not time
wait for it. Yep.
Now, and the sun's in the right position. Let's stand right here.
But it had me thinking though, like looking at these characters and how the story plays out. I really think that they dropped the ball with Cyborg simply because he would have been the one to notice that they're in a simulation.
I agree, actually.
Yeah. He would have been the one to notice that there is a source code everywhere.
They gave him like a participation approachy variant of it, where they're just like, that would explain why it felt so weird here. Like, yeah, like you would know.
Yeah, you would know. And then
like, I have mad respect for Cyborg.
Oh yeah,
he definitely would have caught on to this a lot faster than he did.
Absolutely. And I feel like, and that's just one of the cases where like they already have a plot in mind and they're just trying to make everything fit into that plot. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And when you're dealing with so many characters, it's not going to always work.
That's fair. Yeah. I still keep my score on this, even with those. But the other issue I had with the character at first was Batman, though. Like how he when he first showed up, he did not seem like Batman.
Yeah.
He did his Batman thing of like changing, but like first off, he left his outfit.
He left his right out there,
outside the door.
Yeah.
So he left his outfit out there. Like it's like he wanted somebody to see him. He had already stolen the key to the lab.
It was very sloppy for Batman.
And all right, even if you're going through hormones, you're not gonna unlearn your training.
Yeah, and so that kind of seemed like, again, who was this for? And did they think the audience was dumb? Like we wouldn't be able to pick up that this is Batman?
Of any of them to mess up. Like, all right. As much as I love Cyborg, less people love Cyborg like that. He's not as known. He's really well known.
Yeah.
But less people would be like, wait a second, he would know this immediately. What are you talking about? Or at least he'd catch on to it pretty quick or be running some shit in the background for it. Everybody knows that Batman is like serious. He is the professional.
Right. Batman would be so upset at himself if he did something like this.
if an older Batman looked at that Batman and was like, "What are you doing?"
Like you left your bat suit basically in the open, and then the person who you incapacitated, you just left it,
just there, not even in a closet, not like pulled to the side, in the middle of the doorway almost.
It felt like they did that just to be like, hey guys, we're gonna get to Batman now. And I'm like, you could have not shown us any of that and we still would have.
I actually would have liked it more if Bruce would have been talking to Weiss and then we would have picked up on it afterwards.
Oh yeah.
Like if she hadn't seen the outfit or the knocked out person.
Right.
And Bruce walked up and been like, I don't like parties too either, or are there places to I normally go to a place to hide.
Yeah.
Like, if they would have just started with that and then been like, she would have been like, oh, I'm Weiss Schnee. It's like, oh, Bruce Wayne, I almost said Banner.
I mean, I think how I would have done it was, as the kids say, I would have had him riz her up a little bit, put on that Bruce Wayne charm.
I would have, okay.
And then have him lift the card from her.
Building off of that, because I do like that. Like that. I would have rather him tried to riz her up, and then her shoot him down because she grew up in this society.
Yeah, she
does not care as much for people who are like that.
Yeah.
So I think that would have been way nicer.
Yeah.
Like he shows up, tries to riz her up. He doesn't even have to steal off of her.
Yeah.
He could have been trying to do that near the dad. Which also, why did the dad have the key card to the lab anyway? He doesn't do any work.
That's a good question.
You didn't know that until now. But he's literally like a chairman. He's not.
Yeah.
He's not dumb, but he's not that smart.
Right. He allocates the money. He doesn't do any. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think at the start, I think they did Batman a little dirty.
I think they had the right kind of idea in mind, but the execution, the execution wasn't really there. You're right. It really isn't until Weiss comes to him in the cell. When he's like, that's
when he gets a second to, and you know what? They could even say that he was like discombobulated.
Yeah.
Because once he's in the cell, he has a second to mess around, to refocus up, and then he becomes a lot more Batman.
Yeah.
But even then, I don't think Batman's been yeeted into another universe before.
Yeah.
And he does not make these sloppy mistakes.
Right. And so I guess we have to chalk it up to, again, him being, and that's what's so difficult about this movie. how many of these mistakes do we chalk up to them not being mistakes and them being teenagers?
Yeah.
And how much of it is really just an oversight on the writers?
And I don't have an answer for it.
Yeah.
It's interesting though. It's an interesting thing to ponder.
Yeah.
Those are my main like character frustrations. That from the RWBY side, the only one I had an issue with was Weiss being bumped up a little bit more because she's like somewhere in the 16 to 18 realm of age wise.
Okay.
You're not going to be a max. I mean, there are characters who are in shows and people in real life who are indeed master hackers at that age, but like she did not focus on that.
Yeah.
She focused on training with fighting to be a huntress,
right,
like her sister was. And she did not mess with computers like that. She's smart.
Yeah.
She knows how to use computers, but not like that, in my opinion.
I get what you're saying. You know, like for me, again, I'm a huge Batman fan. It would be like if Batman is the one who constantly builds and repairs everything. I'm like, well, you have Lucius who, you know.
Wait. Why do I know that name?
Lucius, Morgan Freeman's character from the Dark Knight movies. Yeah.
Oh wow, I forgot his name.
Yeah. Yep.
He's actually a character in like the comics and all that.
Yeah, he's in the comics.
Oh, dang.
Yep.
Shows it. Yeah, like I said, not a huge comic fan.
And granted, Batman does build a lot of stuff by himself, but like when it comes to a lot of shit like that, he normally enlists the services of Lucius Fox. You know,
so it makes sense because like it's that's the smarter thing to do.
Right. You got anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up here?
No, I think that's. I mean, I think we've gone over pretty much a good chunk of it. I'm very interested to see where they go next.
Same.
I'm
already invested. You guys, you got me for the part 2, which I almost want to call it a sequel instead of a part 2.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I think it's more. Granted, we don't know.
Right.
They could be part 2, but they didn't set it up like that. They set it up like, oh, they did it, but now we need to figure out who the next villain is. It's connected, but it's not half. They really wrapped this up well.
Yeah, agreed. Because, you know, not to beat a dead horse, but typically for it to be a part 2, it has to end on a cliffhanger. And
a bigger cliffhanger than it
was. Yeah. I mean, and for this, the Justice League got back to their dimension safely. And, you know, the RWBY characters got back to their world safely.
Yeah. As far as we know.
Yeah. They just have the lingering question of who was working with Kilgore.
Yeah.
Overall.
Actually, I do have one more thing.
Oh, yeah.
One more thing. Why did they have zero urgency at the end?
So I hate that. That is like one of those tropes, right?
Yeah.
That just irks me. So we're talking about the part where Jessica Cruz, she, you know, gets the portals open to the separate universes
at the same time, and just holding them.
And she's like, "Okay, guys, I got it, but I can't hold it for long."
It's like, I don't think I can hold this for super long. All right, everybody have their goodbye chats.
We
had every chance to 5 minutes ago.
And yeah, you guys had all the opportunities in the world to say all of that before Jessica opened up the portals.
Honestly, they even said some of it.
Oh yeah, and then on top of that, they just the same way we moseyed into the spoiler field section. They moseyed through the.
Yeah, it's not like, honestly, my normal walk is faster.
Oh yeah.
They took their time walking to these.
Oh my God. Yes, they did. They really did. And it was and so also we don't know, we just assume, where did the Justice League wake up at?
I was actually curious about that too. like it just doesn't, we don't see any. So after they get out of their universes, it's just RWBY's team, and they're waking up. Well, RWBY's team and Juniper's team and all that. But they just wake up, and they're like, "Oh dang," and that's it.
Yeah. Roll credits. Yeah.
They're just like, "Oh man, I don't think that was a simulation." Done.
It was a very bizarre spot to end it.
Yeah.
You're right. They needed some kind of hook. I mean, they just needed something there at the end.
I mean, like, technically, the RWBY universe team doesn't know that they were real people. I mean, we don't technically know if they're like.
They have to assume that they were real people.
They have to assume it's something else. Yeah, but like you could almost argue the deniability of being like, man, that was a weird simulation. Okay.
Yeah. You're right, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, and then also technically, neither team has been to either's universe.
They were both no connection.
Yeah, they were both technically in a simulation together that was on neither universe. It gets weirder the more you think about it.
It really does. just sit down and have a happy, fun time watching this. Don't think about it too hard.
Yeah. It really just does get a little bizarre.
But yeah, aside from those two last little bits, that's all I got.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I still had a blast, with this movie, watching it with you and learning more about RWBY, and then, piecing this whole thing together. This was an experience.
It was indeed. I made the joke, actually, whenever we were like halfway through the movie. I was like, man, if this gets you into RWBY, I'm going to laugh.
and here's the thing, like, I had zero idea about what RWBY was. And like, after watching this, I can at least say, you know what? I think I see the appeal.
Yeah. You have to, at the start of it, you have to realize that it was a very small team and it's not going to be like a cinematic masterpiece for the show. Once you get past that, and some people just don't like the art style, the 3D model art style.
Yeah, because
I respect that. Yeah. You can watch the anime variant, the RWBY Ice Queendom, which I haven't finished watching yet, but it's good. They changed some things, but I don't think it's for the worse.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it does have a very unique art style to almost. Not really cell shaded, but it is like a 3D model variants. I mean, I wasn't mad. It did take me just a bit to get adjusted to.
Yeah,
I mean that's because and that's just because it's not the typical DC animation look, but
it's also not the typical anime look.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah.
So, one more question before we get out of here. This isn't the first time technically that DC has kind of danced along the lines of anime. Have you seen Batman Ninja?
I have not actually.
Have you heard of it?
I have.
Okay.
There is actually one coming up I'm interested in. I thought was a joke. I don't know if you've heard of this. The Suicide Squad Izuki.
I'm sorry, what?
So, an Izuki is a genre of or isekai, depending on how you pronounce it. Don't come after me on my pronunciation, whatever. I barely do English. It's a genre of anime where a character either gets summoned or like dies and reincarnates into another world, and they have like powers, and a lot of times it's fantasy and you get like magic or whatever. So they're taking they're taking Suicide Squad, Harley Quinn, and the Joker. At least I don't think I saw anybody else, and Izukiing them into it's all anime style, and they're putting them on a world with high fantasy and magic and stuff. And when I first saw it, I was like, haha, man, this fan-made trailer thing is really cool. That'd be wild to see. And then I kept seeing it, and it was like official. I was like, what? That comes down to nothing. Who asked for this?
Who asked for that?
So Izuki is my favorite genre.
Okay.
I love it. I really do. There's a lot of it, and a lot of people are like, all right, we're tired of it. I'm not. I love it. I keep doing it. I didn't ask for this.
Yeah.
I love the Joker as a character. He is awful. I'm not going to be one of the people that try to defend him. He is scum.
Oh yeah.
But I love him as a villain.
Same.
He's an amazing villain. I love Harley Quinn as a character.
Oh yeah.
I like Harley Quinn the most whenever she beats the dog shit out of Joker and leaves. That's my favorite variant of her.
I do prefer the put in Harley Quinn, admittedly.
You're allowed to. You were allowed to. I just like
get
it more when she's done that.
You know what? I don't like it when she's dumbed down to being the person who left Joker.
I agree with that. Yeah. I agree with that because she is very intelligent.
Might I recommend Harleen? Wonderful little graphic novel written by a writer and artist called Stephen Sedgwick. It is actually, after all these years, I believe the first and technically only time that we get to see Harley Quinn's origin story. Not only is it the best Harley Quinn story I've read, it was one of the best comic books I read of 2019, I believe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it's full on about Harleen Quinzel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's called Harleen. Yeah.
I did have to flex my nerd a little bit on
that
one.
You did. The whole name. Yeah. It is fantastic where like you get the journey into like you see how she falls for Joker's bullshit.
Really?
And you get that whole descent into her madness. It was.
I might have to.
It's there for you if you want it.
I might have to cut out some time for that. Yeah. That's.
I think you really enjoy it. It was a fascinating read.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, have you done a review on the Batman one?
Ninja? I have not.
Is this gonna have to be a thing?
It may have to be a thing.
Oh Lord.
It may have to be a thing.
I mean, I'm here for it.
Yeah, I would love to have you on for that one. Also, similar to this one, I've seen middling reviews for Batman Ninja.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna hold out hope that it's gonna be better.
No, me either. I think that one's just gonna be purely weird, if I'm being honest.
If the one video I've seen of it is the right one, it looks cool.
It does look cool. The animation looks very good, but from what I've seen, it just doesn't.
I will give that one this. I can see what people ask for that.
Okay, you know what? Yeah,
I can be like, all right, cool. People were like, Batman's so cool. What if he was a ninja and it was like anime style?
You're right.
I can see it. I'd be like, that's cool, I guess.
And they've already put different. They're called Elseworld stories, like the DC stories that take place in different time periods. There was one called Gotham by Gaslight. That's probably the most popular Batman Elseworld story.
Which is ironic. I haven't heard it.
It is ironic. That's the one that takes place during like the Jack the Ripper era, and Batman is going after Jack the Ripper.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's a very, very good story. Yeah, and they did an animated movie.
Style almost.
Yeah, they did an animated movie on that one. They changed the ending as to who Jack the Ripper is, but it's still a really good story.
Joker?
No.
Okay.
No.
I'm just making sure.
Yeah.
Like, I just.
I don't want to get them mixed up, but spoiler alert. I'm pretty sure we covered this on the podcast anyway, some years ago. But I think in the comic books it was. I'm gonna get these mixed up. I think in the comic books it was
Alfred. I knew it.
Commissioner Gordon.
Oh, really?
And in the animated version, I think it was Harvey Dent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But like I said, I could have that mixed up.
Either way, those are two good choices.
They are, opinion. Yeah. So I wasn't really upset at the change.
Oh, so it's like a full, they take all the people from the cast and scoot it into the past?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I almost, you know what? Those showing up almost explains why this was made, in my opinion. I didn't realize more of that had been done. I thought this was just like here and there.
Yeah.
So it still doesn't answer my question of like why.
Yeah.
But it kind of it makes me better in the I'm in the neighborhood now.
So one last question, then we get out of here for real. Does this movie does the movie we just watched and reviewed, does that give you hope that the Godzilla King Kong crossover with Justice League will be good, or what are your feelings on that after seeing RWBY and Justice League?
Okay. So earlier I was like, I tend to be like fairly optimistic, right? I don't like to analyze stuff too hard. That's kind of a lie. I do like to analyze a lot, but for movies enough stuff I don't. But this isn't enough for me to be like,
yeah,
these are good now.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to get a good 3 to 5, in my opinion. Weird off the wall crossover movies that were like good, way better than I thought they would be.
Yeah.
For me to be like, all right, maybe we have some things.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. That's my final on that one. What about you?
I agree. I have very little interest in seeing that, if I'm being honest. It's one of those things where I will do it for the podcast. There's been a lot of those that I've done.
I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
Unless somebody invites me to see that, I'm not gonna.
And that's completely fair.
I just be like, why?
Yeah. It's completely fair. The unfortunate thing is that like all the interesting comic crossovers that they've done before, due to legality issues, cannot be done. So we will never get like the Predator in a Batman animated movie because
that'd be sick.
Yeah, that Predator is a Fox created and owned character, and Fox is now owned by Disney.
And Disney's real hard about keeping that stuff.
Yeah. So
look, Disney's just going to own everything eventually. Anyway.
That's true.
Like, we'll get it eventually.
We'll get it eventually. Yeah. Spawn, obviously, the Spawn Batman crossover was really fun, but
cool.
But, that's owned by Image. And, right now, Image is in a position.
I don't even know what Image is.
Walking Dead. That's the Image comic book.
Oh.
Yeah. Pretty big TV show. You might have heard of it.
I never finished it, actually.
That's fair. Well, what about this other little comic book made by the same guy? An Image book called Invincible.
That's the name?
God damn it.
You're catching on too quick. No, I do know Invincible. I did not realize it was the same person.
Yep. Robert Kirkman.
Same person at all or a group?
Same lead writer. Yep.
Oh, wow.
Robert Kirkman created both of them. So he should be sitting pretty financially.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually really did like Invincible. Yep. Invincible, sorry.
And obviously Spawn is one of the OGs of...
You know what? Actually, that makes me think about something. Mm-hmm. I think a more... one that I would be more... after seeing this, more willing to see also would have been like Invincible and RWBY.
Really?
The age range is closer.
Oh, you're right. Man, just that gratuitous amount of... Violence
would be weird.
Yeah.
So it probably
I would want to see Invincible in RWBY's universe and not the other way around.
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Not at
all.
Definitely pull the superhero over.
Yeah.
Not, yeah, that's mm-hmm. But it would also be another issue of like Superman.
That's true. Yeah.
You'd have to he's just gonna have to take the L.
Yeah. Yeah, he is, and Mark's used to that. Invincible. He's
used to just getting the short end of a stick.
Yeah. Getting beat with the broad end of a stick.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
or the tree that the stick came from.
Right,
and with the rock that was under the tree.
Oh, okay. Well, I think we're gonna wrap that one up on that note. But homies, one and all, thank you guys again for listening in. I hope you guys have had a blast with this. As always, with reviews like this, if you guys didn't enjoy the movie, then hopefully you at least enjoyed the review of said movie. I know there's been several cases where I could at least say that,
I tried not to tangent too hard.
I love your tangents. They're very informative.
They're easy to step in.
Well, I mean, especially with something like RWBY. And again, I knew what I was asking for when I asked you on, to do this with me.
Speaking of, I'm kidding.
Well, now that we've officially talked about this movie an hour longer than the movie.
Yeah, almost exactly, actually.
Yeah.
Huh. Man, you spent more time listening to us talk about this movie than it would have been to just watch it.
Another common thing, But with that being said, Dylan, thank you again for being on. I really appreciate you being here. This was incredible. I had a blast. Looking forward to part 2.
Oddly enough,
yeah. There's a real curiosity there. But that would be all for now. So, homies, we will see you guys again soon. But until next time, my name is Superhero Homie Q.
And I'm Superhero Homie Dylan.